What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Lineman Life Live. It's Friday, y'all. It's Friday. We made it. The weekend. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. Started a little bit later tonight. Busy day. Super busy day. So I needed a little bit of time to kind of like get my bearings, relax a little bit. Been running all over the city all day long on some business. So didn't want to like frantically jump into the regular time slot that I usually do my live streams on. So decided to move it back. So a little prime time action for everybody tonight. But we're going to get to today's big stories. A couple that I want to focus on today. We're going to go through and talk about, kind of give my thoughts. Obviously, the first being the statement from Richard Sherman. He released a statement that basically acknowledged the whole situation, the whole kerfuffle that we've seen here in the last few days. And we're going to react to that. And also Naomi Osaka. Naomi Osaka has a documentary that just dropped on Netflix. I have not seen it, but there is definitely plenty to talk about. One of them being the situation with her choosing to represent Japan in the Olympics. So we'll talk about that as well. But do me a favor, hit that like button if you haven't already done so. If this is your first time on the stream, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Become a subscriber of Uche Nwaneri, the Observant Lineman. And if you are enjoying this content and want to donate to the channel, think about joining and becoming a member of the O-Line. But let's get to it. First order of business is, of course, the situation with Richard Sherman. So this was the statement that Richard Sherman released talking about the situation that happened with his in-laws. We saw that he was arrested, and we obviously also saw that shocking video of him outside of his in-laws' house trying to break down the door. Definitely was not something that many of us who follow sport or follow football and know of Richard Sherman. I don't think anybody really expected that to be something that would occur with him. But hey, you never know what's going on in people's lives. So let's look at this statement. He posted this on his Instagram. Says, "I am deeply remorseful for my actions on Tuesday night. I behaved in a manner I am not proud of. I have been dealing with some personal challenges over the last several months, but that is not an excuse for how I acted. The importance of mental and emotional health is extremely real, and I vow to get the help I need. I appreciate all of the people who reached out in support of me and my family, including our community here in Seattle. I'm grateful to have such an amazing wife, family, and support system to lean on during this time. Richard Sherman." So, of course, we know that Richard Sherman was going to have to, there was going to have to be some kind of communication coming from his end about the events that happened. And I think that there is plenty here that we kind of alluded to as far as, his mental health. And from what I think I heard, I read somewhere that he was dealing with a situation with his kids. Not sure. But if that's the case, then clearly, there's some things happening in his personal life that are causing some real stress. And, I think some people have been talking about how this is like, they're kind of talking in relief. Like this was a situation where he's stressed out. He lashed out, he's mentally, drained or mentally struggling with dealing with whatever stresses he's having. And people have kind of pushed away from talking anything about CTE in this regard. I've watched a couple of commentaries on the situation, and people look at it and say, he's 33. He's 33, right? Yeah, he's 33. This is too early for him to show signs of CTE, things of that nature. And honestly, no, it's not too early for him to be showing signs of CTE. Let's not forget our old boy Aaron Hernandez, the guy who was convicted of murder and suspected in a double murder. Ultimately, Aaron Hernandez, ended up taking his own life in prison. But when they studied Aaron Hernandez's brain at an age of 27 years old, Aaron Hernandez had the most severe form of CTE that they have seen as up to this point, the youngest and most severe cases that they'd seen. His entire frontal lobe was hollowed, was almost like it was bad. Like it was what do they call it? It was the degradation of his frontal lobe was so severe. They'd never seen that in somebody that young, ever. So this guy essentially was full blown. He was going through full blown degenerative brain disease. And, of course, you add on top of that the situation that people talked about with him taking like drugs, like PCP or something like that. Not sure, so don't quote me on that. But, you add that, you add alcohol, all these things, all these mood changers, and there you go. You have a situation where a guy is, not giving him any excuse at all, but there are factors there that you can't ignore. So really, I would say that it is not too early for Richard Sherman to be dealing with symptoms, probably minor symptoms in the grand scheme, but symptoms that actually cause a change in his behavior. So it's not something that is that would be uncommon. There are players younger than him who played in the league, who didn't, who weren't starters, who weren't guys who, some of them were on practice squad. There are plenty of guys who are dealing with full-blown severe symptoms of CTE at this point. They're not even touching 40. They're not even touching 35, half of them. I know that for one guy, I forget this cat's name, but my old teammate Eugene Monroe, me and him had spoke. We were trying to get this guy what do they call them? When you have like the dog, the dog that helps keep you calm, helps kind of keep your focus in line with what do they call those dogs again? You can take them through the airport, whatever, do whatever with them. Just throw it in the chat if you remember, if you know the name. I'm blanking on that right now, but. We got this guy one of those guardian dogs, and the guy was when we spoke to him on the phone, me and Eugene, we spoke to this guy, and he played for the Browns on the practice squad, and this guy couldn't put sentences together. Like it was pretty sad. I mean, we obviously wanted to help him and got the dog, but. This is a guy who was younger than us. So, it's not about your age when it comes to that. It's about severity of, your life, your actions on the field as a player throughout the course of your life. A lot of football players have been playing football since they were in Pop Warner. And that is like so as we know now with hindsight, that is such a detrimental that's such a detrimental action to have kids playing football at that young of an age when their brain's not fully developed. I am fully against Pop Warner football. Like, I feel like Pop Warner football is literally like that's going to mess your kids up playing football. And if you've watched, some videos around the internet of these Pop Warner practices and games, I mean, they're hitting each other harder than professionals hit each other. Relative to their size, they're hitting each other and causing cats to flip. And you're seeing these kids get up. I mean, the most recent one you saw, there was a drill that these coaches were running, and it was just basically like an Oklahoma drill type thing. And these guys had a running back who was twice the size of the kid who was trying to tackle him, and this cat just ran through his chest. The kid was completely dazed on the ground, completely dazed. And people will drag the coaches for that. People will, denounce that. But how do you teach kids to play football the right way at that young an age? You can't. It's impossible. There's no way to do that. But that's where it starts. So, if you really think about it, all of those hits from Pop Warner to middle school, to high school, to college, to the professional level, I mean, you can't even count, though. You can't even count the hits. There's no way to know how many. But there are easily thousands, tens of thousands of hits. So there's really, if you're going to play football, and this is my belief, and this is not something that I think a lot of players would say out loud. Kids shouldn't play football till they're in high school. In high school. They shouldn't be allowed to play tackle football until they're in high school. There's just no reason to. There's nothing to gain from playing football in Pop Warner. There's nothing to gain from playing football in middle school. Like, those are irrelevant really to your future, because when you get into high school, your first real glimpses of talent in understanding football are that's where you get that. That's where you hit that phase of your football life where you start to actually show that talent. You see, it's in high school. If a kid's naturally athletic, but playing the sport is different than just being athletic. There's a lot of things that go into it. Richard Sherman is, in my opinion, I would venture to guess with no way to prove it all, that he's probably starting to exhibit just the typical symptoms, the ones that aren't like, degenerative and to the point where it affects your ability to actually like operate on a daily basis. I would say that he's probably dealing with these very small, very mild, typical symptoms. A little bit of moodiness, a little bit of short temper. You add alcohol to that and it's 10 times worse. So, that along with things going on in your life and your in-law testing you in some way or saying something to you over the phone or sending you some kind of text message. Maybe he sent him a text message and said, "You're a bitch." And he just set it off. He was like, "You know what? I'm going over there. Easily could have been something like that. And here we are. But he's absolutely remorseful about it. I think at the end of the day, at this point, it's really none of our business what happens from this point moving forward. That is for Richard Sherman and his family and his support system and the people that are in his circle to start the process to try and, to begin healing for him and for them. It's not really, I would like for this, honestly, other than what they come out with in the court when they reach a conclusion as to whether or not he'll likely get probation, he'll likely get like community service. It'll be mild. I think outside of that, we shouldn't really be privy to any information about what happens unless it comes out through some kind of court situation, which if the whole thing about his kids is true, then that might be a situation where we'll hear more about the details in that. But it's not our business. I think we should kind of all start to kind of let this go. And You know, I've seen people say, "Oh, he's privileged. Look how look at all the things he's getting away with. He fought the cops." The judge said in his hearing that he's a pillar of the community. So he's privileged because he's an athlete. And to that I say, you're partially right. Partially right. But at the same time, half of where you're wrong is that the reason why he was, and I forgot to mention this, he was able to leave jail without any bail. It was a signature bond. Now, if you didn't understand how that kind of thing works, one would say, look, they didn't even make him pay bail, and think that that's from the judge, just having mercy on him, as if Richard Sherman can't afford to pay the bail on, what was it, like 10 or 15,000? That would have been, $1,500 that would have came out of his pocket, 10%. So with his entire situation, you have to understand that that was the first time that he's been arrested. First time he's been arrested. So when you go to court for something like that, with all of the charges, which again, I won't argue all the way with you if you say there's some privilege he's being given here, with the charges being taken down to a misdemeanor, which again, that happens, but I'll give you that. They gave him all misdemeanors. With all of those things in play, he is a first-time offender. So his lawyer, of course, spoke with the prosecutor, and they said, hey, first offender program is going to be the move for him. That's basically a situation where, to avoid having a felony on your record, you go into the first offenders program, which puts you on like a probationary period. It's a special kind of probation. It's not special kind of probation. It's just like probation alternate. So he, goes through whatever requirements they ask, and then boom, it's over with. After he completes his time and whatever else he has to do in way of community service, he's good. That's something that everybody gets. That's something that everybody is able to get if you arrested for the first time. So, my sister's a prosecutor in Texas, and, I've heard her talk about things like that on numerous occasions. So it's something that people get. It's not that they actually just said, hey, we're not even going to pay attention. We're going to turn a blind eye to, the shit you did. That's just something that the court system allows, so let's take a look at the chat here. We got a couple super chats. Mexican Iron Man. What's up, brother? He says, hail, brother Uche. Thanks for staying on top of this story without the usual media bias. I appreciate your no-nonsense and intelligent analysis, like always. Thank you, my man. Thank you. I appreciate that. And Mexican Iron Man for $14.99. It's Rebecca Starr. What's up? It's Rebecca. $10. She says, appreciate the show, Uche. Can't wait to get me a new Court Jester tank in the mail. Oh, okay. Appreciate you. Getting the merch. Ooh, that reminds me. Shameless plug. We got a merch store. I got a merch store. And the main item on the merch store is a Stephen A. Smith meme. He's got the clown hair, the clown nose, and it says Jester. He is the court jester of sports. So if you're thinking about, maybe getting you a nice little tank for the summer, well, there you go. Got you a tank for the summer. Also, I thought this was funny. I have to show it to you guys just because I thought it was funny. NFL memes breaking. Jets agree to terms with the door, who exquisitely blocked Richard Sherman on a 1-year deal. That is such a Jets thing. Sorry if you're a Jets fan. Sorry, not sorry. But moving on from that, because I think for now that's pretty much a done deal as far as anything that we're going to hear about it with Richard Sherman until his next court date. And that the court dates will probably be the only things we really hear about. But other than that, I think that that's probably going to be, at least for the near future, the end of this entire 2-day kerfuffle, as I call it. Next up, Naomi Osaka. I thought that this was interesting. I didn't read the article, but it was something that immediately kind of caught my attention, and I'll explain why once we get into the article. But it says here, Naomi Osaka discusses the backlash she faced after choosing to represent Japan over America at the Olympics. Suddenly, people are like, your black card is revoked. I would guess to say that, since Naomi Osaka has always played for Japan in the Olympics, that, people just maybe aren't up to date on where she was born. She was born in Japan. She was not born in America. She was born and I think, came up in Japan for a good portion of her life. Not 100% sure, but she does have a Japanese accent when she talks, which a lot of people probably don't hear, because I would venture to think that some people probably can't differentiate between, a Japanese person and a Chinese person and a Korean person, but they are very different, both in look and sound. But we're going to go through the article and we'll talk about it. Says here, Naomi Osaka's new and intimate docuseries has landed on Netflix. During the series, she discussed backlash over her decision to represent Japan at the Olympics. I think let's skip down because it actually starts here. Let's see. The tennis superstar Naomi Osaka has hit back at those who criticized her decision to represent Japan instead of the United States at this Summer Olympics, saying that her plan to play for the Asian nation shouldn't have been a surprise to commentators. Quote, I've been playing under the Japan flag since I was 14. It was never even a secret that I'm going to play for Japan for the Olympics, she said while discussing the backlash during an episode of her new self-titled docuseries on Netflix. So I don't choose America and suddenly people are like, your black card is revoked. And it's like, African-American isn't the only black, I don't know. I feel like people really don't know the difference between nationality and race because there's a lot of black people in Brazil, but they're Brazilian. Osaka announced that she would be relinquishing her American citizenship in 2019. The tennis star, who was born in Japan but moved to New York at the age of 3, so she moved young, previously held dual American and Japanese citizenship, but under Japan's Nationality Act, those who hold dual citizenship must choose one before their 22nd birthday. Okay, so yeah, I was about to say, damn, she only 22? Nah, she's a little older than that. Osaka's mother is Japanese and her father is Haitian. At the time, Osaka told the Japanese broadcaster NHK that she had a special desire to represent her birth country at the Olympic Games. It's a special feeling to aim for the Olympics as a representative of Japan, she told the outlet. I think that playing with the pride of the country will make me feel more emotional. In 2018, Osaka's mother, Tamaki, told Wall Street Journal that her daughter has deep cultural ties to Japan and made the decision to represent her country of birth early in her career. We made the decision that Naomi would represent Japan at an early age, her parents told the publication. She was born in Osaka and was brought up in a household of Japanese and Haitian culture. Quite simply, Naomi and her sister Marie have always felt Japanese, so that was our only rationale. It was never a financially motivated decision, nor were we ever swayed either way by any national federation. Earlier this year, the 23-year-old, who is the first Asian player to reach the #1 world ranking and the highest paid female athlete in the world, withdrew from both the French Open and Wimbledon. In an essay, we know about that. She wanted to look out for her mental health, so she withdrew from those competitions. Says, but later in the essay, Osaka confirmed that she would return to the court to represent Japan at the Olympics, which are being held in Tokyo. She said, after taking the past few weeks to recharge and spend time with my loved ones, I have had the time to reflect, but also to look forward. I could not be more excited to play in Tokyo. The Olympic Games itself is special, but to have the opportunity to play in front of the Japanese fans is a dream come true. I hope I can make them proud. Yeah, so, this article was interesting to me. Because really, there is difference in black people around the world. Like, it's not like they're black. African American is not the only black. And they're distinctly different in cultures as well. Like Africans who are from Africa, obviously different culture than African Americans who are from, and their ancestors are from the United States or were here as slaves. So it's not, it's the same shade, but many different sections that we have in play here. And really, with this, I can kind of relate to the feeling that some black folks could do that to you, because that's the kind of thing that I dealt with as a young kid growing up. It felt like there was a little bit of a barrier between me and the black kids at my school. Even the ones I was friends with, there's still a little bit of a barrier there because, I guess for some reason, growing up, a lot of times, I dealt with a lot of jabbing from my black schoolmates over me being African. Of African descent, rather. And I always found it annoying that for some reason it felt like they thought that I was like I always felt like it was either they thought I was, I don't want to say inferior, but just like not hip to them, not hip as them, because I wasn't a black American black person. But also they felt like in some way that I was like bougie, like that I thought that like I, was stuck up for some reason, which, I never really got. It annoyed me, but it also, it allowed me to kind of see, okay, this is how it is on, from a cultural standpoint. That's kind of where, they are so distant from me as an African, an American-born African. Oh God, I'm tongue twisting with that because I want to say African American, which is technically right, but that's also black. So it's like I'm Nigerian heritage descent. Anyways, there's there's such a disconnect there that they look at Africans, and I'm not saying all black people, but I'm saying I've had a number of experiences growing up, and maybe it kind of calms down as you get older, but growing up, had a number of experiences where that was, there was a little bit of tension there between me and some cats who were like my teammates. There was like tension there. It was all good in the locker room, but when we were walking through the hallways, if I say a joke, and if we're joking on each other, and I get a good joke in, they immediately go to the African shit and start talking about Africa and start talking about lions and fucking mouth sounds for language, like all these tropes, all these different things. They would just bring them up about African people and just relate it to me, and it's like, bruh, like. I was born here. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, and even on top of that, I've been to Africa multiple times. I ain't never seen a lion, ever. I ain't never seen a lion. I ain't never seen any wild animal in Nigeria other than like stray dogs. Never seen anything. So it didn't really, when I would hear those things, knowing that it wasn't, that it was actually incorrect for where I'm from where my family's from, and just seeing how that's their go-to when they feel like they're losing an argument is to start talking about African people. That made me, growing up, that made me a little bit jaded towards black people, and not in a way where I didn't want to like associate with black folks. Cause I mean, shit, I'm black. Like I hung out with black folks easily for the most part after, getting out of high school and going into college, and, you get to be an adult for a little bit, but growing up as a kid, like that was the dilemma that I kind of dealt with when it came to black folks. Now, when I got to college, it was different. Like, was it? It was the same my freshman year, honestly. It was the same my freshman year. Once I like became a player on the field, then things started to become okay. Then it was like nothing. It was that was all done with. But you know, absolutely the most concentrated part of it was, you know, middle school, high school, elementary school. Like those were the times when it really was like something I dealt with. But I think that is something that black folks, you know, if I'm being 100% honest here, I think that's something black folks need to check about themselves culturally, is that, you know, if you can't see, like, if you can't, for as much as black folks have struggled historically, if you can't find an ally in African people who come to the U.S., your long lost cousins, your long lost culture, if you can't find a way to make an African your ally, then you're literally like you're cutting yourself off at the knees in terms of progress moving forward in the history of black people. It's not going to be, you know, you're not going to be able. You're not giving yourself that buffer, that boost, that XP boost to be able to level up, because Africans come here, and I would say for the most part, especially Nigerians come here and excel. Like, we don't play. Our parents, look, my parents and every American-born Nigerian will tell you the exact same thing, because it is the one uniformed way our culture operates in the family unit. Like, Nigerian parents do not play about you being great at something. Like, I remember when I was a kid, my parents we would go to a graduation for a Nigerian, you know, a family friend who's Nigerian also. And, you know, this is like 20 times every graduation season. We're going to all these Nigerian kids' graduations. Some from college, most from college, but some from high school as well. But, you know, they expect excellence. And they will push you to be excellent. And not in an overbearing way, but through competition between all Nigerians. Parents want to brag. Because one of the things that we did when I was young is we would have these Nigerian parties, and all the Nigerian community would be there. And I mean, parents want to talk shit about what their kids are doing, and you hear them talking, and parents talking to each other during the party, and they're talking about, oh, my son is graduating with biochemical engineering degree, cum laude. He graduates in 2 weeks. And as soon as we get in the car to leave to go home, we'll be driving back. My mom and my dad will be talking. We'll be in the back seat, all of us stuffed into the back. And my dad will turn around and say, you see Chioma there? You see Chioma? You see how he graduates with bioengineering degree? You better get your mind off that stupid Nintendo. You better get your mind off that football. It's only 1% that ever makes it. Get your mind on your studies. Why don't you be a doctor? Why don't you be an engineer? Like, these are the things that Nigerian parents tell their kids. They're telling that's what to me. And now I'm fucking getting into like society shit now. But to me, that's something that's so engraved in our culture that black folks could gain from like allowing these kind of people to like be in their lives and rub off those kind of principles and values. Like, it was never in my entire life. It was, I was never, how do I put this? Making it and being great in something was simply the only like way to do it for me. growing up. Like being good at whatever you decide to do and doing something that is, that is highly esteemed. That's what our parents wanted. That's what they came here for. They came to this country to go to school and to raise a family to basically live that American dream, to try and attain that level of achievement. Like these were things that Nigerians migrated over to the U.S. for. They didn't come here, to hang out. And hell, a lot of Nigerians came here, went to school, went back to Nigeria. Billionaires, you know what I mean? Or went to school in England. They went to all, that's like Nigerians reach for the stars. That is kind of just the general sentiment, the family unit. That's what it's all about, reaching for the highest level of achievement you can. And it's not a forceful, like, we'll disown you type thing, but it is like you are smart enough to do this if you focus. You are smart enough to do this if you take it seriously. Do not think somebody's going to give it to you, because nobody is going to give you anything in this world. We came to this country with $20. I had $20 in my pocket, oh. $20. I lived with strangers for 6 weeks. We did not come here to play games. You're lucky that we had children when we had here. Because when we got done with school, we were going back to Nigeria. Like, that was their thing. So they pushed us. They pushed us hard, and they cared. They cared. They pushed us hard. They expected, they set a bar for us. They expected us to reach as high as we could for that bar. And, I think that's something that, anybody could benefit from. Everybody should benefit from. And I mean, in a perfect world, everybody's parents would push them like that. And I'm not saying that people's parents don't push them, but I'm just saying that, sometimes when you train your youth to like see the top of the mountain instead of just the first landing, and the top is the only thing that they can focus on, and you're helping kind of push them towards that by kind of guiding their decision-making processes. Like any kid can benefit from that, because it feels like, you feel like you're in a competition. You feel like you're fighting your way up. So, I can understand, where when I dealt with black kids growing up, where I can understand where there is that kind of disconnect, because they don't see Africans as the same thing, which we aren't, but we aren't, but we are. There's something we can gain from each other. And, in Naomi Osaka's situation, she is absolutely, in that same kind of boat. Her black side is Haitian, and then her, obviously she's Japanese on the other half. But she has more of an alignment to the Japanese culture, that she's probably been more immersed in that, because, her mother is Japanese. So her mother is going to immerse her in her own culture. And that's what she feels drawn to more than, her Haitian side, which, if you're thinking about it, she's not even American, like really in the slightest, other than having been here when she was 3 years old. She's actually Japanese, like through and through, culturally, mentally, like she's Japanese. So, I thought that was an interesting article, and looking at that, just because I could relate. I could relate to it. So let's take a look at the chat here. Bum, bum. Let's see. Wait, Uche, stuck up? OMG. Man, I tell you what, I'm not stuck up, but I mean, I do have my own little standards for things, I guess. Let's see here. Also, she has so many Asian endorsements, and is the only Nike athlete currently allowed to have several endorsements on her uniform at once. Damn, I didn't know that. Yeah, Naomi Osaka is like she's the best. I don't think she's ranked number one right now, but generally speaking, we kind of look at her right now as that as the person who Serena kind of passed the torch to as being the top in tennis. I mean, she's the top paid female athlete in the world, and she's got a ton of championships at a young age, so she's got plenty of time to get plenty more, and it's likely she will. But again, I'm gonna check out that documentary and see what it's talking about at some point. So, got a short one here, I guess, tonight. But I was thinking about, I don't know if y'all are grown enough to handle this, because there was something that I thought was very interesting. Now, since we've been kind of talking about these societal things. And I don't know if I should do a reaction to this video that I was actually watching a little bit of before the stream that I thought was really interesting. I thought this was a really interesting video. It is a video that took place in the 1950s, and it's called High School Exchange Student Town Hall or NUSA Debate Over Prejudice. And I am always interested in these things because this is something from way back in the past, and I like to hear how their perspectives were back then and see if they're comparable to how perspectives are right now. And I know this is not a political channel by any. Well, it's not a political channel. We do sometimes venture into the 3-foot side of the pool where we can stand above the water and, talk calmly. But I never really wanted to go deep into it. But I don't know. I guess I want to ask you guys, do y'all want to as kind of a little open forum kind of thing, do y'all want me to react to this video for you guys? Because it was interesting. These are high school students that are actually talking from 1956. So you're about 10 years removed from World War II, and there's a number of different ethnicities that are part of the panel, and they all are speaking pretty openly about their own prejudices, not just it's not a thing like we think that these people are prejudiced against us. It's they're talking about their own prejudices. It's Friday night. It could be like our movie night. I don't know, but let me know if you want me to react to it, and then we can discuss along the way as we're watching it. Then give me an F in the chat. I already see the freaking the freaking chat count is going down. They're like, oh hell no, Uche. Hell no. But F in the chat if you want me to react to it for you guys. If not, then I'll probably give it another 5 or 10 minutes. You guys can ask me whatever the hell y'all want, and then we can bring this stream to a close. But go ahead, let me know. F in the chat if you'd like me to react to this video. If not, no worries. I won't do it. I'll give you guys a second to figure that out. Let me see here. Give you guys a second to figure that out. Let me, real quick. I got to use the bathroom real quick. So give me 1 second. Be right back. All right. I'm back. We only got 4 Fs in the chat, so we're not watching shit, guys. We're not watching nothing. 4 Fs. That's it. We're not watching nothing. I'll save it. Maybe it's for the better. The Johnny Stick. What team would you play for if you could, and why is it the Seahawks? Honestly, and I know I've said this before on different streams. Before the Jaguars gave me an extension, I was planning on either going to San Diego or to Pittsburgh. So those were the 2 teams that I wanted to go. I wanted to check out in free agency. But the Jaguars offered me a deal before the last year of my contract, of my rookie contract. And we had the NFL lockout coming right after that season. So I went ahead and was like, yeah, I'm going to take that money. I'm going to take it. But yeah, San Diego, Pittsburgh. Those are the 2 teams that I was looking for when I was going into my last year of my rookie contract. Oh, I see more Fs. I see more Fs in the chat. I don't know if that's enough. I don't know if y'all are ready, man. I don't know. It's some serious stuff. It's not like a downer or nothing, but it's actually pretty interesting, the video. It is pretty interesting. I know I'm over here trying to sell it to you guys right now, but it is a pretty interesting video. Not gonna lie. It held my attention, which for a town hall, or not even a town hall, for an exchange panel to hold my attention like that, I was like, yeah, this might be cool to react to. I mean, it would be, it's not sports related, but it on a Friday night when it's like, we hanging out, why not? I see more Fs. All right. Couple more from some different people, and it might and we might have a go here. We might be going. Okay, I see another F. If we get 3 more Fs from 3 different people, then we'll do it. Then I'll do it. I'll feel comfortable enough to do it then. I will feel comfortable enough to do it then. So, that's 1. We got one extra one, silver 0. We need 2 more different people, and we'll look. We'll have a look-see. Ken Griffey Jr. Funny story. I met Ken Griffey Jr. for the first time before a game in Jacksonville. My rookie year, he was in our equipment room when I walked around the corner. I was like, Ken Griffey Jr.? He's like, yeah, man. I'm like, shit, what up? Got my jersey, got my pads on, about 10 minutes from going to the field. And there's Ken Griffey Jr. in our locker room. All right, let me see. We need I don't know. Is that an F? Is that an F from the Johnny Slick? Is that an F? If that's an F, then we only need 1 more. But if it's not, then we need 2 more. If it's not, then we're going to need 2 more. Okay. Wait, no. Okay. Oh, we got him. All right, we're going to go through this. All right, so the video, from what I can tell, is 25 minutes. I don't know if we'll get through the whole thing, but I definitely, we'll definitely start it and try it. We'll see how it goes. But this is 1956 school exchange students in USA debate on prejudice. Philippines, Japan, UK, and Indonesia. When I first started this video, the funny thing, I started laughing immediately because when they, it's 1956. So when they got to the panel, wasn't no black folks. I I was like, yeah, I guess it would be kind of hard for them to be on there, since they probably weren't allowed in the building. But let's do it. Here we go.
Welcome to our forum discussion on the roots of prejudice. We'll be talking about what our prejudices are, where they came from, how they're nourished, and perhaps even how to get rid of them. Let me introduce you to the 4 student participants in today's discussion. Ratnati Iskandardinata, high school student, 17 years old, and also a talented dancer from Indonesia. From Japan, Yoriko Konishi, whose lovely voice you've just heard. From time to time, we like you to get a sense of what we do in all those times when we aren't having serious discussions. We very often get Yoriko to dance or sing for us. She does both. From the United Kingdom, 18-year-old Judith Reeder. Judith's got a bit of a cold.
We're going to get her to sing and dance for us before the show's over with, guys. Just so you know, in the audience at home. Yeah, it's 1956, all right.
Today, it did not come from swimming in the Atlantic Ocean, although she assures us that when she's in England, she does swim in the ocean during the winter. From the Philippines, Raul Contreras. Raul will be 16 years old, patriotically enough, on the 4th of July. He may admit some prejudices, but one he obviously doesn't have is a prejudice against women, or he wouldn't have been willing to appear tonight with 3 women being the only male on the program. Now, on this question of prejudice, perhaps we ought to start out by trying to define what you think prejudices are. What do you think prejudice is, Ratnati?
I think prejudice is a feeling of hate of people as a group or individual toward other people.
You say a feeling of hate. Do you think prejudice is as strong as hate?
Yes. When we ask somebody if he has a prejudice, then the answer will be, I hate such and such.
Well, I suppose that is true. What do you think prejudice is, Eureka?
So she asked her, do you think prejudice is as strong as hate? She said yes. I see somebody in here saying no Native American perspective represented. Come on, man. Look, the brothers and the natives, we can't get in the building, bruh. We can't get in the building. It's 1956. We're out back smoking cigarettes in the parking lot, listening on the radio. That's what we doing.
I found that if somebody distinguishes between 2 white men, it is not prejudice. But if somebody distinguishes between a white man and a colored man, it is prejudice.
I would define prejudice as a rigid opinion formed about a certain thing before there has been a just examination of the facts.
When a person loses track of the dignity of the human soul and begins to judge others not on the basis of their being persons, but on the basis of race, creed, economic status, that is prejudice.
Well, is it fair to ask you whether you have any prejudices?
Well, I guess so, Mrs. Waller, and being brutally frank, I'm prejudiced against Japanese. Well, not to the extent that I hate them. No, not that way. But I got this, well, as a result of World War II. Because, well, I guess I was yet too young to understand what happened during those times. But I think that what my relatives and friends and the people who were witness to that unfaithful occasion, well, they just more than justified the fact. And I think it's justified for me to feel the same way because, well, I know that my people suffered very much under that ruling.
You still as prejudiced against the Japanese as you were?
Well, 5 years ago, that prejudice of mine was, well, slightly fading away. But when Japan stubbornly refused to pay reparations to us, well, the prejudice began to brew again. But now I found out from close contact with Yoriko and other Japanese that Japan isn't ready to pay reparations yet, because as Yoriko said, some of them, and most of them, even have to suffer the cold in the classrooms because they can't afford to heat the schools.
Yoriko, you've got any prejudices?
Well, I don't have any prejudice for Philippines, but many Japanese people hate Korea because the president of Korea made the line, his own line, on the public sea between Korea and Japan. And if the Japanese fishermen go over the line, they are caught by Korean people, and they can't go home for a while. And we are trying to be a friend for Korea.
So, real quick, couple things I noticed. Our young chap from the Philippines, actually very self-aware. Actually very self-aware and very honest about his prejudice. Like, when's the last time you heard someone actually, like, admit to having a prejudice towards someone else? Like, that's, I mean, hell, you if you do, like, online, your ass gonna get canceled. But, you know, in conversation, like, when is the last time you ever talked to somebody who actually, like, was honest and said, you know what, I don't really like these kind of people or these people, but it's for this reason. Like, not just because of who, you know, their color or anything, but because of maybe a notion of being slighted a number of different ways by that ethnic group. I mean, that to me, that was something that I didn't expect, like, necessarily for each and every, you know, for this kid to be straight up about why he doesn't like Japanese people. And he also admitted that over time that started to fade until another slight in his perspective that Japanese were not ready or willing, whichever one I don't know, but they weren't ready or willing to pay reparations to the Philippines. And for those of you who don't know, during World War II, Japan did a lot of conquering over in Asia. And they committed what in today's world, the things that they did during World War II were some of the highest violations of human rights that you could imagine. Like, a lot of really bad shit. You know, take that for what you will. But that's where a lot of that there's some deep-rooted tensions between a lot of the countries in the Orient against Japan. Like, Koreans don't like Japanese people. Filipino people don't like Japanese people. Shit, Chinese people don't like Japanese people because Japan had almost nearly conquered all of Asia during World War II. While, you know, the Germans were doing their thing over in the Western Front, on the eastern side of, you know, the Pacific side of the world, Japan was just rolling through these motherfuckers. Like, they were taking over, killing the men, enslaving the women, like enslaving the women. You know, they didn't give a damn. They were like, at that time, Japan had the perspective that they were the destined society to be the most powerful in the world. That was their shtick. They were like, we are going to be the best motherfuckers out here. We destined to be the best motherfuckers out here. So we're going to take over all Asia. And we're going to go as far as we can. And it was, you know, that was kind of the source for a lot of the tensions between different Asian ethnicities. That's why if you ever run into somebody who looks Asian, of Asian descent, do not call them one country. Do not call them Chinese. Do not call them Japanese. Do not call them Filipino. Don't just ask them what part of Asia are they from? Because if you call a Chinese person Japanese, that is like the equivalent of calling them like the N-word, calling a black person the N-word. They get pissed about that. They don't like that. And the same, you know, and it goes vice versa all the way around for all of these places. They get offended if you know, call it, if you call a Filipino Chinese, they're going to get mad. If you call a Filipino Japanese, they're going to want to fight. So, you know, just a little bit of info there.
Now that we've started, we better go on around the circle. Judith, you got any prejudices that you'll admit?
Yes, I suppose I'd better admit them, although I'm English. I have some very foolish prejudices. You'll probably laugh. For instance, as soon as I meet a person with red hair, I always put myself on my guard because I have a silly prejudice that all red-headed people have terrible tempers, you know, that they're as passionate as the color of their hair. Oh, and then I...
Ha, 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 as passionate as the color of their hair. To me, just in my thoughts, that's kind of that's like a prejudice that would fit more in line with British people against Irish people, because you will find more redheads in actually, I don't fucking know, but when you say redhead, if you're talking about, if the first, sometimes the first thought in my head when I see a redhead who's got pale skin is that they're Irish. I don't know. Don't ask me why I think that. That's just what I think. I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if most redheaded people have an Irish ancestry in them. I have no fucking clue. But that's what that kind of felt like to me. She's saying that in the nicest way possible, just like British.
I have another silly prejudice. For example, when I first met the Australian delegate, Elizabeth Woodgate, who hasn't been on television, I was shocked by her accent, because to me it sounds just like a Cockney accent would in England. And I hope I'm not conceited or anything, but a Cockney accent in England, most English people would shudder a little bit when they hear it. But she very frankly told me that she shuddered when she heard my accent. So I got paid back for that too.
Why did she say she did?
Oh, I think she imagines that... she said she really had to forget my accent in order to like me, because it was too formal. I gather most Americans think that about the English as well. So.
Ratnati, it's your turn.
Well, sometimes I find prejudice against the Dutch people when in school, when I learned the history and learned how the Dutch people treated Indonesian. And I've some other prejudices of my own. That's I hate people who are proud and who feel that he is the master of the other people, and who thinks that he knows everything than anybody else.
Let's come back to you a minute, Ralph. Are there...
So she was basically saying she read about the history of how the Dutch treated the Indonesian people, so she had a prejudice against them. And also she has a prejudice, or she said she hates people who are proud, who think that they're the masters over another person, which is just, she hates prejudice, or she hates like prejudice like behavior. But, they're high school kids. Got to give them a break.
Are there any prejudices in the Philippines between groups of people?
Yes, there are existing prejudices between groups of people. As a matter of fact, most of us still, are prejudiced against a group of hybrids, those who have more Spanish blood than Filipino blood in them, and we term them as mestizos. These incidents usually occur in the schools. As you know, I'm in a school run by Spanish monks, and we have a lot of those of that group studying in our school, and usually they are favored. But we think that we are right in saying that they are sort of aristocratic, conceited, and high-headed, and sore-headed, and all sorts of adjectives, and they have the foolish idea that they have the royal blood or royalty in them.
Well, how do you get along with these boys in school, Raul? Are there any problems?
Well, frankly speaking, I don't get along with them pretty well. As a matter of fact, we usually fight with one another.
Anybody else notice how, just speaking and the way that these high school kids are speaking English, sound very well, it's very well spoken. It's much cleaner than what you hear today. We speak with so much slang and so many filler words that don't mean nothing. But I will say, back then, because this is 1956, America had the top-ranked education system in the world at this point. Schools actually educated kids back then. Yeah, that's kind of neat.
Is there any problem? Yes, Eureka.
Yes, Japan have had many American or European soldiers after the war, and most of them married with Japanese girls, not only formal wedding, and they made children who called hybrid. And I think the hybrids have nothing to be punished, but some grown-ups didn't used to treat as the Japanese children, and grown-ups also used to treat the mothers of children. Japanese people thought that the mothers of hybrids are not good. They are horrible because they married with foreign people, foreign boys, and many Japanese people don't like to marry with foreign people because they live in different customs, and they consider with different ways.
You still have a strong, may I say, prejudice in Japan against marrying people from other countries, don't you?
Well, yes.
Eureka,
Yeah.
could you tell?
At least these kids are honest. You know what I mean? At least they're honest. And look, this was like, for our modern era, our modern civilization, this was like, this was the beginning of the era of like a global kind of threaded connection between countries. And you start seeing, this is like the kind of first phase of interracial kids being born in for this, for this modern world. You got American soldiers who were stationed in Japan. They marry Japanese women. Now you're seeing mixed Japanese quote unquote hybrids, which are obviously that's kind of a new thing at this point. So, but it's funny when I think about it. It's kind of the same now in a certain way. Mixed kids get caught in turmoil over the fact that they're mixed. So, it's not something that is like, it's not something that's disappeared since then. People still have and again, a lot of times I feel like it comes down to more so young kids kind of, they are the ones who pick at those kind of things. Some adults do, but as an adult, they try to be discreet about voicing it. But really, not a lot has changed in that regard from back then to now.
Tell us something about the status of women in Japan. We hear the strangest things, and you've been telling me the strangest things. Could you tell us more about it?
Before the war?
Yes, and now. Or before.
Well, up to about 60 years ago, Japanese people thought that the white people are horrible because they are almost red hairs, and everything is so big about bodies. And quite a few people still think so. And in Japan, we think that something to be beautiful must be small and delicate.
You could hardly apply the word delicate to some of the big soldiers we sent to Japan, could you? But I never knew that you looked down on us because
damn.
That's very interesting.
Damn. Our damn our host over here, Becky over here, she's like, yeah, we sure did have some big old soldiers that we sent to fucking occupy your country after we dropped 2 atomic bombs on your ass. So yeah, I see where you might have a point about us being some big people. That was fucking kind of funny. Because I felt like a subliminal fucking message.
We're always proud of if the Western men are tall and handsome. We consider that yes.
Oh, we're proud to be small and delicate.
What you said about skin color, Eureka, I've heard that the Chinese speak about us as pink people instead of white people. It's so much more difficult to be proud of being a pink person, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
She ain't Chinese. What is this? Come on, Becky. What are you doing? Becky, listen. Read the country label here. She's not Chinese.
Yes, you're a pink person.
Might as well face it, Judith. Here we are.
I feel scarlet.
Ratnari, let's get... Yes?
Judith. Judith, since Philippines has so many colonies and, well, let's say, nearly and all over the world, how do you feel towards the people in the colonies? Do you have some prejudice?
Oh, shit.
No,
Shots fired, everybody. So, Miss British person, how do you feel about you guys' history of colonization? Do you think that was good? Shots fired in the most polite way possible. Jeez. Back it up.
Judith, since Philippines has so many colonies and, well, let's say, nearly and all over the world, how do you feel towards the people in the colonies? Do you have some prejudice?
No, I personally don't have any prejudice. At least I hope I don't. But I know that a lot of Europeans think of the Asians, for example, as rather lazy. I don't mean to be rude, but that used to be the impression we had. You know, when we started our colonization, we thought...
Look how she said it. Her face went a little bit, it sunk a little bit when she said it, because you're speaking directly to a person of whose heritage your British Empire had directly affected her people through colonization, and here you are sitting right next to someone from that region talking about, hey, so meant to ask you this like 100 years ago. What do you think about colonization? Like she got put on the spot instantly.
As rather lazy. I don't mean to be rude, but that used to be the impression we had. You know, when we started our colonization, we thought we were doing good to you.
Oh, Philippines weren't colonized well, they were colonized, I guess, but not by Britain. So, yeah, different color of lipstick, same pig. The Spanish colonized in the Philippines. Indonesia. Oh, my bad. I got those flipped up. She's Indonesian. Indonesian colonized by the Netherlands. That's why she was talking about the Dutch. So they were taught in school about how the Dutch treated Indonesians. These are high school kids. Yeah, Japan wasn't really, Japan wasn't really colonized by America technically, but I mean, we did take, part of their land and make military bases that are considered American soil. So that's a little bit different. The UK fought the opium wars in China, which was basically the Chinese saying, hey, stop getting our people hooked on opium. And the UK said, nah, we're going to keep doing that. But think about this, guys. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Like, this is like over 50 years ago. This is like 70 years ago. Like 63, 61 years ago? Something like that. Doesn't sound a lot too different from the shit that we hear today. Just the conversations, I guess. Just they're spoken a little bit differently because they're speaking actually more eloquently than we kind of speak today. But conversations sound pretty similar.
When we started our colonization, we thought we were doing good to you. I know that you disliked, for example, in Indonesia, you disliked the Dutch there. But they probably thought they were helping you.
They were not helping us. See,
Wow. Come on, British girl. Don't give a justification for the Netherlands colonizing Indonesia. That's like a self-report. Like, you don't know what they were doing to them. Like, don't do that. That was like, you could see it in the Indonesian girl's face. She's like, what the fuck?
We thought we were doing good to you. I know that you disliked, for example, in Indonesia, you disliked the Dutch there. But they probably thought they were helping you.
They were not helping us. See, you mentioned that we are lazy. Well, we are not exactly lazy, but they didn't give us a chance, see, and we didn't get experiments to build our country.
Well, Judy, I don't think all Asians are lazy.
No, please, you're misunderstanding me. I said that was a general opinion. Maybe not now. I hope certainly not.
General opinion, but, well, when it's not, it's, well, sort of wrong to say that they are lazy. Let's just say that they've got very flat feet that they can't lift them up. Because you've got to consider, for example, the climate in most of the regions in Asia. Well, it's just but natural. You can't just work with all the warm climate around you. Of course, you'd always feel like fanning yourself, or going to an air-conditioned theater or something else where it's cold.
Is there not only this difference of climate that explains a difference in tempo, but is there a difference in philosophy, too, that perhaps we in the West haven't appreciated, I wonder?
Well, as far as I know it, and, well, I think you've mentioned it in this program, that Indians think that they should never soil their hands. And in the Philippines, I must admit that, well, we're sort of inclined to get white-collar jobs and swivel chairs. Most of us do, especially the new college graduates. We don't want to work with our hands. We want to have, well, big bosses and with pretty secretaries around us. That's the common tendency.
Could you give a proof that we are lazy?
Oh, gosh, now you put me in a corner. I was trying to give you an example. You criticize the countries which do, you criticize the Dutch, for example. But I know the British, when they started doing their colonization, they tried to help the countries they were in. But...
Propaganda got her. Propaganda got her. The British tried to help the countries that they colonized. She said that with a straight-ass face, too.
That we were butting in and taking away your opportunities.
Well, yes, I think so. I'll give an example about the Dutch, that we didn't get a chance to be educated, for example.
That was when the Dutch were there?
Yeah. And do you think if the...
That is a familiar statement. She's saying that, you know, the reason why they hate the Dutch is partly because, one, the Dutch colonized their country, and then secondly, they didn't give them an opportunity to actually build their own. They didn't give them any experience. They didn't allow them to be educated to build their own country. That is a common theme when you're dealing with one society or one country or one power having jurisdiction over a sovereign people, and then controlling all of the essential elements for societal growth are controlled by the I guess overlord, which would be the country that is colonizing, and that obviously holds that country of indigenous people back from being able to build for themselves and to be self-sufficient. Not every country advanced at the same rate around the world throughout history. So the ones who advanced faster, the ones that decided to colonize other countries, the ones that decided to, you know, ship in mass amounts of slaves and not educate them, not provide them with the ability to be self-sustaining, to understand and build their own culture and have something that represents them, well, it does tend to breed a certain level of hostility towards that colonizing factor.
People in the colony get a chance to get free, you will get them, do you think?
Oh, now we're going right off the subject.
She don't want to answer that shit.
My friend from Malaya is very glad that Malaya will get their independence next year. She's very proud, and she tells everybody that Malaya is going to be independent next year. Do you think that if you do that to the other places, then you
Yes,
will make them satisfied?
Well, we hope it will make them satisfied. Every country wants to be independent. That's only natural. But there comes a point somebody to decide whether they're ready to receive their independence. But I know we could go off on another long argument about that.
Wow. Wow. I don't know. Did y'all hear that the same way I heard it? She said that, hold on, let me make sure I understood what she said in response, because that shit sounded like that's a tone deaf answer that she gave. I mean, again, it doesn't sound offensive because she's saying it in the most polite way possible, which is kind of a British thing. But she's basically saying, well, everybody wants to be independent, but are you ready to be independent? Are you ready for us? And who makes that decision? Well, the person who's colonized you, from her view, is the one who makes the decision on whether you're ready to be independent, which is fucking like a ridiculous notion.
Make them satisfied. Every country wants to be independent. That's only natural. But there comes a point somebody to decide whether they're ready to receive their independence. But I know we could go off on another long argument about that.
Like that, hey, don't get it twisted. This Indonesian girl, she does not. She has prodded this British girl specifically on the topic of colonization, because obviously the British Empire was the most expansive colonizing force in the world at one point. She's prodding her about that because, I mean, colonization from Great Britain, Spain, the Dutch, these were all like copycat operations. One country was doing it, then another country started doing it, then another country started doing it. So there's kind of a blueprint there. And obviously she can bring that to the table here because her country's been colonized. And you can see after every answer, and it's kind of crazy. Every answer that this British girl gives this Indonesian girl, you can see the disappointment in the Indonesian girl's face every time, because she's justifying and defending colonization at every turn, which, look, Nigeria, where my parents are from, Nigeria was colonized by the British. And, I could go off on a tangent on shit that they did to the Nigerians, how they cheated Nigerians, how they stole a lot of our gold, how they stole a lot of our resources, and didn't provide the technology immediately that they promised to provide as part of the agreement that was made, and suppressed the Nigerian population by installing dictators and actually puppets, like we all know, and those people just basically took all the money. And that's been going on in Nigeria for the last however many decades. So that's something that got sparked off by the British. They did that.
Can have what? I'm sorry, Ralph.
Well, I was about to ask them, what do they think are the most common or basic causes of our prejudices? Is it mainly skin color?
Well, maybe.
Do you mean, for example, taking the American trouble in the South?
I guess taking the American side of it, it's just that the white people don't want to mix themselves up with the colored ones.
But what about the colored people? Perhaps they don't want to mix with the white people either.
Well, what about, since you brought up the American race problem, I'd like to ask you, is it as bad as...
I just caught that. Did she just defend segregation? What the? This is obviously this is a different world. This is 1956. This is a different world, in a lot of ways. But it's also the same in a lot of ways. But it is, I find it very interesting that you can see some of the same paths of argument between these people that you see in our society this very day. That was a whataboutism she just did right there. What about black folks? Do they want to be mixed in with whites? Like, that's a whataboutism. That's a whataboutism right there.
As you thought it was going to be before you came, or is it better or worse?
Well, I think it's what I've seen here and what I've heard while I am here and what I have read in the newspapers, it's just worse than I expected.
Don't you agree, Judith?
No, I don't agree. In England, we don't hear too much about the American problem, except, of course, when a certain case came up and the Supreme Court decision, we heard a lot about it then, but not too much. And when I came here, I had imagined from the Tiller case that things would be really terrible in the South. And I found that there's a real feeling of optimism here. I stayed in a Negro family, and I was able to see the position, really a bird's eye view of it, you might say. And the first thing that impressed me was that the Negroes themselves were not happy about the situation, but were pleased. They were grateful for what progress had been made, and they were sure that the situation would continue to improve.
Is that the 2 weeks you were in New Jersey that
yes,
you stayed in a
right,
Negro family?
when I was in a Negro.
2 weeks in New Jersey? Shit, the way she's made it sound, I'm thinking that she would have been 2 weeks in fucking Georgia. I don't know. This British girl, like, that charm has slowly dissipated, if you haven't noticed already. It's slowly dissipated. She is no longer cheery. That smile has pretty much vanished. And now she is being very defensive about many of the points that these Asian members of the panel are bringing up, more specifically, the Philippines and Indonesia, the topics that they're bringing up about racism and prejudice that put the British girl and the United Kingdom in a very bad light, because while they didn't start specifically talking about America, a lot of the things that were happening in America were happening in the UK just in a very different way, but they were happening. And you can see that there's a shift into a defensive mode from her now, which I find very interesting, because it went from halfway admitting that she had prejudices to saying that she doesn't think she has prejudices to saying that colonization was meant to help your savage land. And then she goes from that to, well, what about black people? You think they want things to be desegregated? Like, she has literally flipped into all out defensive posture in support of colonization and justifying colonization, even for a country that's not her own. She was justifying the Netherlands colonization. And now she is defending segregation and saying that, well, I lived with black people and they didn't have a problem. They were optimistic. Yes, so that family of black people that you stayed with for 2 weeks were going to 100% wholeheartedly reveal themselves and their inner feelings about the situation that they found themselves in to someone that is a stranger to them from a country that really, in many ways, is not much different in its ideology from a governmental standpoint at that time as it is in the United States. So why do you think that they would really, truly open themselves and give you a 100% honest opinion about whether or not they were for or against segregation? They put a positive spin on it because you're a guest. That's why.
Family. I know to improve.
Is that the 2 weeks you were in New Jersey that
yes,
you stayed in a
right,
Negro family?
when I was in a Negro family. I know that was in the northern part and conditions are better there. And I was very impressed with that. They said it would be a slow process, but things were gradually improving. It was a matter of breaking down tradition, and I was very happy to find that.
I'd like to know some of your other experiences with, yes, Eureka.
I have never seen any evidences of racial prejudice in the United States. But I found out that most Negroes are laborers, and they don't have a high position on business. But I was very glad when I saw the Negro girl in South Orange, in Columbia High School, who was the vice president of the student council.
I'm glad you did too. Yes, right now.
I had a way to just completely blow off the comment from the Japanese girl who actually said something that was actually pretty it was a positive reinforcement of something that she maybe doesn't understand in terms of the dynamics in America. But she said that she hasn't seen evidence of racism in America, but she was very happy to see a black person in a position of in a high position in her level of school as a vice president of the student council. Attaway, Becky, doing a great job.
Here in New York and New Jersey, I don't see any racial.
Hold
in
on.
New York and New Jersey, I don't see any racial segregation or something like that. But when we stop in Williamsburg and we stop in Negro school, I saw it's very strictly. I mean, the Negro school go to the special Negro, and I was talking to some of the girls in the school, and I asked them how they feel about being segregated. But they said that they don't mind about that, and what they want is equal rights. And there are some places that they can go, such as restaurant or some clubs. And I think that since all Americans claim and emphasize that America is the most democratic country in the world, and as long as segregation exists, I don't think it's a democratic. I mean, pure democratic.
Well, adding some.
She has a strong accent, but I've been able to understand her, and I kind of every time she kind of gives a comment, I try to kind of like recap what she was saying because I don't know if everybody in the audience can maybe understand every word she's saying, or maybe you are, but I'm just doing it to be safe. This is something that you still hear today. You do still hear this today from foreigners about America. America claims to be the most democratic country in the world. Yet, the actions that America takes against its citizens proves otherwise. And she doesn't believe that America is the most democratic country in the world. This is in 1956, guys. We still hear that today. And there are legitimate arguments that it is true. That's all I can think about right there.
Something to that. Isn't it that?
I mean, pure democratic.
Well, adding something to that. Isn't it that? In the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag, you mentioned something about I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation indivisible under God, with liberty and justice for all. Well, the last phrase just doesn't suit everything. I mean, with this segregation problem here and the discrimination against colored people, how in the world could you have liberty and justice for all? And in one of my hospitality periods, I didn't expect that even the kids could carry it that far. I had the, privilege, I should say, of attending one of the dances sponsored by one of the civic groups. And I just noticed that, it was a big dance floor, and all the white kids were assembled on the left side, and the most, shall we say, not strategic part of the ballroom, all the colored boys and girls were in there. And I never saw a white boy asking a colored girl for a dance, nor did I see a colored boy asking a white girl for a dance.
I had a nasty experience too. When
Yeah, because motherfucker get killed if you do that shit.
I first arrived here, and I happened to mention.
Okay, here comes British girl. Here comes British girl. Let's see what she got to say to defend whatever she's going to try to defend. I don't even know. He was just stating what he observed. I don't think he was actually trying to make a point about. I think he was just trying to make a point that there is a a distinct separation of obviously segregated peoples. So let's hear what the British girl says.
A colored boy asking a white girl for a dance.
I had a nasty experience too. When I first arrived here and I happened to mention to a group of young people that I was going to stay with a Negro family, one of the boys got up and walked out of the room. And I felt awful. I thought, well, we're in the north now, not in the south. And then when we did go into the south, I really came against it pretty hard. We went into this big store, and I was in the ladies' cloakroom, and I was washing my hands, and I was with a group of the eastern delegates, the rather darker-skinned ones like Ratnati. And I was standing a little apart from them, and this lady came up to me, and she pulled me to one side, obviously assuming that I was American, and she said, what are these Negroes doing in here? And I was so cross, and I told her as calmly as I could that I was with them and who we were. And of course her attitude immediately changed. But it gives you such a nasty shock when you come up against it face to face. You read about it in the newspapers, you hear about it, but you don't really realize the significance of it until it hits you in the face yourself.
That is no different than today. What she just described right there, a Karen. A Karen. There was Karens in 1956, y'all. She's talking about Karens here. That hasn't changed. I mean, now we got highlight reels of Karens. I mean, shit, the Victoria's Secret Karen is literally holds the record, the world record for biggest Karen on earth. For anybody, I mean, I'm sure y'all are on the internet, so clearly y'all know about the Victoria's Secret Karen who just, had a total, I don't even know what the hell to call that. It's either an excellent performance or a completely spectacular meltdown. One of the two.
I think the major cause of the prejudice is skin colors. And I think I don't know why, but I think the white people think that colored people have dirty skin, and they don't have progressive culture. So the white people are the most great and wonderful person in the world. I think so.
On this matter of skin color, if you were here in the summer, you'd see lots of Americans.
Damn, she'd be like, well, I don't know. I'm not gonna get on Becky for that one. I don't know if she was blowing her off. The Japanese girl made the point that she just has her own preconceived notion that white people think that black people are dirty skin, no culture, lesser than. That's basically what she's saying. If you were to, if it was an adult thought process, what she's saying is she feels like white people see black people as lesser than them.
I think so.
On this matter of skin color, if you were here in the summer, you'd see lots of Americans on all the beaches trying to get brown.
It's significant.
I wonder what that really means.
I think we white women have an inferiority complex. The Eastern women and the Negro women have a sort of reputation for being so beautiful. We're a little jealous of them.
I guess you just envy us colored people.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Was there anything corresponding
Mic
to
drop.
that in
Well, I think so, Mrs. Waller, because in the Philippines, it's just funny. There's a common tendency among women, well, those who have a dark complexion, I should say, or just a tanned one, or just a brown complexion. Well, especially these high society matrons. Well, even if they've got already wrinkles on their face, they still want to bleach their skin. Suppose you meet one right now and you say, oh, good morning, and you see that she's just tanned and brown. But after 3 months, you meet the same person, and with the usual society walk, and trying to be very dignified and cultured and everything. And you just notice that her face was is lighter than before. And when you look at her hands and everything up to her arms, well, you'll be likable to exclaim, Holy Moses, because there's a real, very great difference, you see. She's about very light here, but you look at the arms and everything, and the lower part of the body, but gee, it's just a very great difference. It's colored here, but It's very light.
They really
on the
bleach their
face.
skins?
They do, Mrs. Waller. They
What
pay.
about Japan? Japanese women don't want to change it anyway, do they?
Some Japanese women, right, how does that?
Dye?
Dye their hair red.
Really?
Yes. They like red hair, but I don't like it.
What about Indonesia?
Well, as the Western people try to get darker skin, we try to get lighter skin, but we prevent the sun. I mean,
But you're such a nice color now. I don't mind. I think it's
when we go.
That's called that's a self-hate type of thing that colonization kind of inflicted, because the norms and what's considered acceptable in society for Indonesian people and for many others that were colonized, what was considered acceptable changed, even for Japan, when they began to open up to the Western world. A lot of, I mean, it's a movie, but Last Samurai kind of very lightly shows that, in that during the expansion for Japan in beginning to trade with Western countries, society began to kind of change because America was having more and more influence over Japan. Same thing with these colonies, or with these countries that were colonized. Their culture was suppressed to make way for the colonizers' culture, which dictated that you shouldn't wear your tribal stuff. You shouldn't, look a traditional way. You should look like this, with a bow and a tie, or whatever, fashionable, trends were the thing in that time. And that creates a sort of self-hate in the psyche of, parts of your population, because they feel like they need to look like the people that have colonized them in order to be accepted, in order to have an opportunity to move up. Which, I mean, hey, I don't think it's right. I think it is a definite detriment to every country that's been colonized. But this is, the milk has been spilt, as the saying goes. So while I'm making the point that it directly is a result of things like colonization, things like slavery, these things have happened. So, this is just kind of showing and reinforcing to a certain extent that even in 1956, these were still hot button issues of the time, just as they are now. So.
Go out and we use long sleeve blouse to prevent from the sun, so we don't get a very dark color skin.
Tell me, what are your governments, if anything, doing about problems of prejudice? You've each mentioned some prejudice that exists in your country. What are your governments doing to try to eradicate it? You mentioned the prejudice against hybrids. You mentioned the prejudice against hybrids, too. You haven't told us much about the position of women. Otherwise, by the way, let me ask you right here, are women any freer in Japan now than they were before the war?
Well, before the war, there was no democratic, and women belonged to men, and men controlled women in everything. And
How about
men
now?
had first opportunity to everything. Even getting out of the door, women had to open the door first, and men passed first. And in the buses or theaters, men take seat first. And if there's no seat, women have to stand up.
Oh, I'd love to live in Japan.
Oh,
Oh, shit. Hot take from the Philippines. Ah, shit, bro. You were doing good. Ah, shit. You get canceled for that shit in 2021, my friend. You get canceled. He broke that shit. I mean, damn. But I guess, hey, Philippines don't like Japan. What the fuck? Come on. Hey, Hey.
Oh, I'd love to live in Japan.
Oh,
But they do that in America and England now.
Is it changing at all?
yes, quite changed. And just now women can vote, and women have equal opportunity in everything.
Judith, you were talking about your prejudice against Cockney accent a moment ago. Is that still very strong in England, this prejudice of the so-called aristocracy against the Cockney?
No, I don't think it's a very serious problem now, especially since the war. You know, this idea that the English speak either with a Cockney accent or else with a very aristocratic accent, that isn't true anymore. And we certainly don't despise people anymore if they speak with that. If you go into the House of Parliament now, you will often hear a North Country accent or a Welsh accent or even a Cockney accent. And we're proud of those kind of people because they are the people who got us through the last war, and nobody would dare say anything against them. In fact, it's the aristocratic accent which is the other side of the fence, and people laugh at that nowadays, I'm afraid. In fact, you may think that my accent is a little cultured, but I assure you, back in England, I have not quite.
The Philippine kid turned into a tire. He's gonna be a dictator one day. Man, he went from righteous to tyrant in a blink of an eye with one comment.
Quite a Cockney accent, but still an accent.
How is it that the British girl is only like her question is about just other British people and their accents? Like, oh, we don't talk to those snob-nosed fiends at all. Like, United Kingdom's colonized like half the world. Come on.
Do you mean to say your schoolmistress would not totally approve of you?
Oh, no, I should be corrected.
Judith, I hate to think what's going to happen when you go back after 3 months here.
So do I.
You'll write me about that, won't you?
Yes,
I wanted to
certainly.
have time to ask you what you thought individuals could do in terms of eradicating prejudice. But our time's almost up. Anybody got a quick answer?
Well, I guess we should carefully examine the individual first before passing any judgment on him. And if we ever pass a judgment, we should be just with it.
That's a good note to end on. Thank you, Batnati, Noriko, Judith, and Raoul. Next week, we're going to continue on this subject of prejudice with 4 delegates from Africa, 1 white and 3 colored. The delegates from the Union of South Africa, Gold Coast, Ethiopia, and Nigeria.
Where's that one at? I want to see that one. Where is that one at? Oh, Nigeria. Oh my God. Who's with me? Who's with me? We got one more in us? Let me know. It's Friday night, man. I'm not going to do this shit regularly unless y'all want it. But it'd be only on a Friday night. All right, we're going to do it. Oh, this is going to be fucking, this is going to be interesting. Ha! Ha ha! Everything now, okay, so before I told y'all about how Nigerians are about excellence, right? Before I even start this video, I can already tell you, this night, whoever the Nigerian is on this, watch out. Motherfucker is going to be sharp. And he ain't going to hold his tongue neither. All right, here we go.
Are Americans prejudiced in their opinions about Africa?
They most certainly are. How could they be objective about African Negroes while they are prejudiced against American Negroes?
I disagree with you completely. I think that Americans are prejudiced for African natives and are very prejudiced against white people in Africa.
Well, I'm getting confused. How can Americans be for and against Africans at the same time?
Well, if I
That's
say
the
anything, I'm
Nigerian.
going to confuse you still more. As an Ethiopian, I'm prejudiced against both white people and Negroes.
Discussion are 4 high school students from 4 different countries in Africa. Let me introduce them to you now. Here is Amelia Day from the Gold Coast. Amelia is 18 years old. Here is Susan Rennie from the Union of South Africa. Susan is 17. Susan, those school uniforms, are they always that short?
No, this is actually a dispensation. I'm a senior, but the other girls have to have them 3 inches above the knee.
Very interesting study in native costumes. Thank you. Now let me introduce the boys, will you? Here, our baby for tonight, 15-year-old Meskin Venega from Ethiopia, and 16-year-old Boniface Ofakaja from Nigeria.
Okay, here's the Nigeria.
Now,
Okay, Gold Coast.
Let's start out.
See, the Gold Coast, I believe Gold Coast is the Ivory Coast. Nigeria's on the Ivory Coast. It's just at the edge of it. So that's there. She sounded Nigerian, but I thought he was a Nigerian, but then I heard her and I was like, oh, wait, it might be her. Anyways, let's go.
By asking you what some of your own prejudices are. How about you, Amelia? Have you got any prejudices, say, against the Nigerians?
Yeah, I have my own personal prejudice against the Nigerians. Coming from the Gold Coast, where there are many Nigerians, I think that I sometimes look down on the Nigerians as somewhat inferior to us. Because, you see, the Nigerians who come to the Gold Coast are mostly beggars. So that's my opinion about the Nigerians.
It's funny.
Hey, we ain't going. We ain't going. If you're going to talk shit, we bringing it right back. That's Nigerians. Y'all was getting our beggars. You need to come see the capital, son.
I don't see how you have a case against for this your proposition, or I say for this your stand. Actually, personally, I look towards the Gold Coast not as inferiors, but perhaps as people that are individualistic, are not working towards the communal effort towards the welfare of the nation. They, of course, have made great strides because they are a very small country, and yet you have all these differences in their country.
Nigerian dude comes out with dignified, balanced, fair response. He ain't talking down on his Gold Coast neighbors. He says they're individualistic. They're intelligent people. I don't look at them with a prejudice. African countries, and this is known amongst Africans, a lot of African countries do not like Nigerians. I don't know why, but I've been told that by Ghanaians. I've been told that by Ethiopians. And of course we weren't like arguing or nothing, but it's just something that, culturally there is Nigeria gets hated on. I mean, shit, look at us. I can see why. Shit, look at him. Motherfucker, sharp. Talking sharp, looking sharp. Got that straight confidence in his eyes. Look at his eyes. Confidence. That's all you see there. A confident man who ain't finna fucking let nobody talk shit.
Nespin, how about your prejudices? You admitted to several at the beginning.
Well, as I told you before, we have also our own prejudices against the African Negroes. We consider them as inferiors. We have, of course, our own reasons for saying so.
Well, what are they, Nespin?
Well, first thing, we consider ourselves to be of the lost tribe of Israel and not Negroes. It's only that our faces are burned that we look like Negroes. And also...
You hear this little motherfucker? Hey, bruh, you're from Africa. You a Negro. Negro.
We've been ruling...
We ain't black. Yes, you are. Y'all just got mixed. That's all that was.
Part of Africa for hundreds of years. During the 16th century, and we ruled part of Egypt, Sudan, and as far down as Mozambique.
Well, what about your prejudices against white men?
Well, back home, if a woman marries a white man, she's considered mean, and when she dies, the priests never pray for her as they would do for any ordinary man. It's just considered as suicide.
Why do you think they look down on the white people so much?
Well, for the first reason, religiously they consider them unclean in heart because they eat pork, and thus prohibited in religion.
Susan, you got any prejudices?
Oh, I think I've got some pretty large prejudices. I think I'm very prejudiced against the foreign press, particularly the American press, because I've come up against a lot of discrimination myself while I've been here. As a South African, everywhere I go, particularly in the schools, at the moment I mention that I'm from South Africa, I'm discriminated against in the sense that, well, the picture in South Africa, the situation has been so badly distorted and so exaggerated because racial news is sensational news. And so journalists have so distorted the picture in South Africa that when I come over here, I'm looked down upon. And I've really felt this discrimination. I haven't been treated as just an individual and a human being. And I feel that the press is responsible for this.
Actually, you know, I was about to dunk on her for a second, but she did make a point there. She made a point that I can actually, I cannot argue against. When she, as an individual, came to America, she was looked down upon because she's South African, and she's looked down upon as a South African because of the apartheid situation in South Africa, where you have people who are like 3% of the population ruling over the entire region, which is, you know, that's a wild concept, but that's what they ran with for a while. So she stated that for her as an individual, she was not judged for herself. She wasn't judged as an individual in her own qualities and traits. She was judged because of the narrative and the image that was given to South Africa, justly so, because of their government and the way that their government operates as an apartheid state. So, yeah, you caught backlash because of your country. So, I mean, it's not fair, and she should be treated individually, but she is talking about the media. She says the media has painted the narrative that every South African white is evil. This was in 1957. Does all of that shit sound familiar? Because has it changed? If somebody doesn't like what they hear or what's going on, they say, "Oh, it's the media. Oh, it's the media. Oh, it's the media." So this shit ain't nothing new, what motherfuckers are saying right now, and blame the mainstream media, blame this and that. They're saying the same shit 65 years ago. It's a cycle. And says something about people's ability to deduct and reason for themselves to a certain extent. They allow a third party to influence completely their entire perspective rather than judging everything on a case-by-case basis, which really is the way everything should work. Case-by-case basis, each situation, each individual, each part of society handled for the scenario that is at hand, rather than lumping everyone into one group and saying that this is what we think of you. So, you know, there you go. Nothing changed.
Well, I've been wanting to ask you a question for a long time. When we all came here, you just took to me. You like me very much, I can see, and I like you. But I know you are a South African, and I'm an African. But why is it that out here you are very friendly towards me, but down in South Africa, you don't do the same towards the Negroes that are living there? Can you tell me?
Well, it's the whole...
Shots fired. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, though. These colonizers, they was catching hell back then. I mean, this is the second video where now we're seeing an African pose the exact same, framed a little bit differently, but pose the exact same question or the exact same dilemma for the colonizer in how come we're sitting here right now, and I'm sure we get along, but if we get on a plane and go to South Africa, you're going to be different. Why is that?
The
whole setup. I mean, South Africa, we have a pattern of life which is different to any other country in the world. Because you have the white population, and which came to the country in 1652, and they are much more highly developed, coming from Europe with European backgrounds and traditions. And they have developed the country and have developed a highly civilized community. Whereas the Negro, the Bantu as we call them in Africa, in South Africa, is primitive, on a very primitive level. And the barrier in South Africa isn't so much color as civilization and economically.
Shut up, you savage. We came to your land and we developed it because we had guns. So you should be thankful that we came and we built these buildings for us, and we built these homes for us, and we let y'all have the shacks. And we sent patrols to make sure that you guys didn't get out of line. And you damn sure cannot come into any building that we're in. And you damn sure cannot hold any position in any office. And you damn sure cannot ever be of a civilized enough nature to be a leader in this country, because it now belongs to us. So yes, definitely, we turned you savages, or we shown you savages a civilized culture. So you should be grateful. That's what the fuck she just said. And that, to me, is a sentiment that a lot of black people in Africa and in the United States, that is a lot that we feel is perpetuated. That it's like we should be grateful for what we got, and the fact that, oh, you should be grateful. America allowed you to be a football player. Football ain't the only thing I wanted to do. But, no. That is not a notion that holds weight when you're talking about one civilization dominating the other. And I'm not saying this to argue with anybody in here. I'm saying this because, from my perspective, a lot of these things that they're talking about in 1957 are exactly the same things that are talked about, just with slightly different coatings of paint in 2021. And the same excuses are given. The same whataboutisms are given. The same deflection is given. So nothing has changed, because there is clearly a train of thought that has been consistently perpetuated, consistently over centuries. So, I don't buy, this just confirms for me that ain't nothing new. This shit's been the same way that it's always been. We just try to make it look less offensive. That's it.
Excuse me.
Color as civilization and economically.
Now watch this Nigerian motherfucker destroy her. Don't fuck with us.
Excuse me, on that point, we get into a very, very tense ground recently. You talked about this question of it not being a racial struggle, but a struggle of civilization. Well, personally, you see, I sympathize with your situation, because I couldn't live in a country, your economic position, and perhaps your future well-being as a nation might be in danger if you allow the strong-hearted, driving Africans to take over the government. That is, of course, what will happen if they're given the vote. Nonetheless, let us come now to that basic issue of racial segregation. I hear this honorable gentleman is from Ethiopia. I think it's high time Ethiopians come to the side where exactly they are. I usually wonder, are you Negroes? You are not Negroes. You say you are not Negroes. Are you white? You're not white. What are you?
Well, I told you the answer. We are not Negroes. We are one of the lost tribes of Israel. It's just because our faces are burned that we look like Negroes.
I've got the point, you are lost. I think that makes a conclusive answer.
Don't fuck with us. We got this. No, so the Nigerian guy is basically saying it's not a matter of civilization. It's not a matter of race. that South African whites are doing the things that they're doing. It's a matter of the fear that they know that their way of life will be in danger if they allow Africans who are indigenous to that land the vote. If they're given the right to vote, they will overthrow that entire apartheid regime through voting. Now, where does that thread connect to in the socio-political web of the balance of power in many of these situations? You don't give them a voice. You don't allow them to vote. You don't allow them to easily vote. You don't allow them to comfortably vote. You make it as inconvenient as possible, and the chances are there will be a drop-off in those who will be willing to vote. South Africa was afraid of allowing black people to vote because the moment that the black people get the vote is the moment that their way of life will end. Similarities.
I'm wondering if Susan and Mesfin have something very much in common.
Hold on. Cha-cha, I can't. What doesn't hold weight? What doesn't hold weight? What are you saying? You're saying that you have to admit that might makes right. What? That the notion that because South African whites colonized South Africa and brought what they believed to be civilization to what they believed to be a primitive culture, that these people should be grateful that they brought that to them. Like that argument, when you transfer it over to America, I think that's where we were at. That's where it was kind of going. I'm seeing your message now, and I think that's where I was. That's what I think that's what you're talking about. When I said it doesn't hold weight to me when people say, oh, well, look, America allowed you to do this and do that and do this. No. It's not that. That's not the point. The point is not that America allowed me to do anything because I'm here in America. I was born here. I'm a fucking American citizen, first and foremost. But also, what should I be grateful for? Because I was the one in a million to be able to do what I was able to do in my life. That's not in that's not any, there's no bonus points given to the fact that that I was born in America, that can tie the knot on whether or not I should be grateful for being in the position I'm in. I did that. And if it was in a different country, it might have been soccer. But I would have did that. So it's the notion that one set of people that was dominated should be grateful that they have an opportunity hundreds of years later, many generations later, to begin the race that was started 400 and something years ago. That is where, for me, I feel like people got to check themselves, because that is really what this game of life, that is where black people are. That really is where black people are. As a black society, they started the race in 1963 when the Voting Rights Act came into play, and the Civil Rights Act came into play. That was when black people were allowed to start the race. America at that point been a country since 1776 and was colonies for 100 plus years before that, 200 years before that. So it's not in any way reasonable, and it doesn't hold weight to me to say America allowed black people to do this, because America didn't allow black people to do this until 1963. That ain't even a lifetime ago. Slavery ended 150 years ago. That's 2 lifetimes. 1.5, yeah, that's 2 lifetimes. Great. How does 60 years somehow balance out the other 340? It's impossible. So no, there cannot be you cannot say you should be grateful. I made myself, and anybody who's successful in their life makes themselves. But when you start the race, if you're not starting at the same spot, then there can never be an equal chance for one person to win or to have the same chance of winning as the other. It's just not there. It's mathematically not there. Like it's nonsense when I hear people say that. That's how I feel. It's nonsense when I hear people say that type of stuff. Anyways, that was my little rant. Let's keep rolling.
I'm wondering if Susan and Mesfin have something very much in common. Neither one of you admit you're Africans, and yet both of you live in Africa and have for generations and generations.
Self-hate.
Well,
on the
I
Ethiopian.
won't say that we naturally, because we're a different ethnical group, we're not Africans in the sense that the Negroes and other groups have actually originated in Africa. But I consider South Africa my homeland and my fatherland, and I always will. And there is a misconception that exists. Most people think that the white settlers came to South Africa and took the land from people who oh no, it is not, and I'll prove it to you. Who came to South Africa.
Hold on, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh no, it is not, and I'll prove it.
Hold on.
And there is a misconception that exists. Most people think that the white settlers came to South Africa and took the land from people who oh no, it is
the Nigerian. Hey, I'm telling you, that's a Nigerian. He's like, what? Yeah, y'all did. What you mean? It's so. Yes. That's exactly what y'all fucking did. Okay, but does the U.S. really give the average black person more opportunities to succeed than, say, Sweden or Denmark? I wouldn't. I honestly, because I don't know. I don't know. I can't provide you with any details to prove one way or the other in regards to opportunity to live a comfortable and balanced and equal opportunity life. I don't know, but I know one thing. Israel Adesanya is Swedish, I believe. He's Nigerian, but he's Swedish. He is the light heavyweight champion of the UFC, and he is pretty famous over there. Pretty famous. Now, I'm sure he'll have some stories, because every black man around the world, to be honest, and this is not a virtue signal. This is a true to heart fact. Every black guy got stories. Every black guy got stories. Everybody has stories, but every black man has a story. Whether he's black American, whether he's African, don't matter. We all got stories. But what's going on over here? But they could come and take the land, which is the bigger point. Yeah, I mean, look, it boiled down to this with the whole concept of colonization in general. One country had better weapons, which allowed them to do what they did to the other country. That does not mean that because they have the ability to do that it should be done. Because what's the result of that? It's the destruction of the culture that has been around for a millennia longer, or a millennia in that time. Like, South Africans, the black South Africans, have been there forever. So their culture, their society is, it's not advancing as quickly as the South African whites. But does that mean that the South African whites should go and take over that part of Africa and just call it their fatherland? Like, motherfucker, chill out. Chill out, because you can't. If we're talking about right and wrong, no, you shouldn't. That should have never happened. Should have never happened. The same way that almost every country in Africa, if not every single country in Africa, was colonized because those who came in were more advanced, were far better experienced at diplomatic manipulation, which allowed them to basically hustle Africans out of their resources, out of their money, out of their cultures, out of their belief systems, everything. They were manipulated, taken advantage of, and then suppressed. That is what happened to Africa. So, knowing that kind of thing, being the end game of colonization is for the country that's colonizing to bolster their society through another country's another country's detriment. Like, that is utterly inhumane in every way possible, and not give them a fair share or a fair trade-off for what you're taking from them. That's to me, that is disgusting, utterly disgusting. That's just my perspective. Formerly Rod Line for $4.99. Do you believe in equality of opportunity or equality of outcome? I believe in equality of opportunity because the outcome is decided by the individual most of the times. Not all of the times, most of the times in a typical scenario. If if we start working out together at the gym, for 6 months, we both have an opportunity to get in shape. One of us may get in better shape than the other, but we both have the opportunity to get in shape. But again, that's assuming that we get to use the same kind of weights, we get to use the same machinery, and you're getting to use the bench press, and I have to use I have to stack wood logs and lift those. That is where the nuance of the problems that are part of a lot of societies, including America, lay, is that we're not using the same bench press. If an asteroid come out of space and destroys Earth, should that have happened? It's irrelevant whether we think that's a false equivalency. If an asteroid comes out of space, one, we can detect where it is, and we are in real time coming up with ways to keep it from hitting Earth. But an asteroid coming out of space is not the same as a country deciding, strategizing, and plotting to actually control another country and its resources. That is completely different. This is a premeditated decision by a country to do that. That is not the same thing as an asteroid coming out of space, my friend. All right, back to it. Back up 5 seconds.
White settlers came to South Africa and took the land from people who were... Oh, no, it is not, and I'll prove it to you. Who came to South Africa and took it away as the whites came here to America and took it away from the indigenous occupants. In 1652, when the first white settlers arrived at the Cape, the Bantu, as they are now known, the Negroes in South Africa, were still coming down from equatorial Africa, migrating. And it's a fact that they had not yet entered what is now known as South Africa, the borders of South Africa.
I don't believe that for a fucking second. That is what we call revisionist. They don't know where any of the Africans were in South Africa. They got there, and maybe where they landed, they didn't see any Africans. So they said, okay, so this whole shit that everywhere that we see and beyond is ours because we don't see nobody here. No, I don't believe a single thing she just said right there about them being indigenous to a continent that's been around longer than their a continent that's been around from the beginning. I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all.
The only indigenous occupants in Africa, South Africa at that time, were the Bushmen, and they were exterminated by the Bantu coming down.
Excuse me, Susan, on that point, I think you...
Let's go! You know I get hyped when a Nigerian gets ready to go. Come on, bro. Let's see what you got to say. He said, excuse me.
Exterminated by the Bantu coming down.
Excuse me, Susan, on that point, I think you've read your history upside down.
How come?
Yes, you see, the exact thing that happened was that these Dutchmen, I think they were Dutchmen, they haven't got a place in their homeland.
Oh,
Not
no,
a means of living.
I can just
Let me finish.
All right, and then I
Susan.
can prove you how wrong your historical facts are.
Oh, no, you know, your history is South African history. Mine is a bipartisan history. Well, this man came without any means of livelihood in their own country, with their economic background without any meaning at all. They came to South Africa. And the real facts are that as they came and there was an influx of these Dutch people from their unwanted homes, as there was an influx, the Bantus they were pushing the Bantus up into the country, till came the Zulu War, in which the Zulus were finally defeated in the most bitter and agonizing struggle they had against these Africans, you call them? Yes.
I don't know where you get your historical facts from. I really
I
don't.
got my historical...
What the fuck she just said? Hey, listen, man. Let me tell you something. This brother right here, how are you going to question an African about the history of Africa when you got there and he'd been there? She's sitting here saying the exact opposite of what he's saying. Well, who is the one that I would believe? The motherfucker who been there before the other one got there, or the one who showed up on a ship and then decided that's what was happening? The Bantu were there and they fucking fought the Bantu and pushed them off, pushed them up north. And the Bantu at the same time, they get into the war with the Zulus. Don't be testing Africans on their continent's history. They know it better than you. You wasn't there.
Yes.
I don't know where you get your historical facts from. I really
I
don't.
got my historical fact from, I think, is it Mr. Trevelyan? Is in British history.
Oh,
That's far
Mr.
better
George
than...
Trevelyan knows nothing then, and I'll say that. Because it so happens that these penniless whites, as you call them, didn't come out because they didn't have homes or because of any kind of persecution. They were sent out as officials of the Dutch East India Company to establish a refreshment station for ships passing around passing around the bottom of the Cape. Just as the Dutch settlers were sent out to America by the Dutch West India Company to settle and to make a refreshment station here. Now, I think if you had to turn around to those Dutch settlers who came out and said that they came out because they were penniless, they'd be just as indignant as I am. And as you say that the white settlers came and pushed the Bantu back,
yes,
it's a fact that the whites went into the interior of Africa and didn't come into contact never even saw a Bantu until 1795.
100 years later? Yes, I believe you. That's bullshit. I don't believe anything she said about the Dutch who would become the white South Africans didn't see a single African for 100 years. You serious? That's like pull it up on New York City back in colonial days and thinking that because you didn't see anybody at the dock, there wasn't no dock, and you just pulled up and you didn't see no Americans, that they ain't here. They don't exist. That's nonsense. No, I mean, I'm making a comparison here, guys. I'm not bringing anything into America. They're talking about their countries.
Which was practically 100 years, more than 100 years after they had arrived in South Africa.
How did you have the Zulu War? What brought it about?
The Zulus had already, by the time, I think you must have a look at a map. Zululand is very far from the Cape, where these people arrived. And within 100 years, after the arrival of the white settlers, the Zulus had by that time, the Zulus are a part of the Bantu group, had already come down to Natal. And then you got the two groups, the one coming from the north, the one coming from the south, and they met. And that's where you get the Zulu War.
It was not even a clash in the sense you are taking it. It was even the British.
It was a clash.
if the British in their benevolence, or in fact in their, because they've seen the facts that this thing is not good, they even were exercising a tempering force upon the people.
Boniface, just to make things more complicated for you and Susan, I've heard a third interpretation of this, which might settle it. That was the fact that the Bantu were a migratory people. And that it may be true that at some point when the whites came in, there weren't any Bantus there because they were migrating somewhere else. But look, this is...
She about to hop out her damn seat. Relax, Karen. But she is saying that let me finish hearing what she said, because she didn't finish her point.
Whites came in, there weren't any Bantus there because they were migrating somewhere else. But look, this is all past history now. I'd like to hear something from Mesfin and Amelia on their interpretation of South African history, but almost rather. Let's bring it up to the present, can't we?
Yes, we'll bring it up.
Well, come back just a minute, Sue, to your violent prejudices against the press because they're misrepresenting what goes on in South Africa. Do you want to clarify that a bit?
Yes, I would.
Will you?
No. Well, I know one outstanding example of misrepresentation. We read in an American, I think it was a magazine, I won't give the name, although I could very easily. This journalist quoted Dr. D.F. Malan, who is an ex-Prime Minister of South Africa, as saying, and I quote...
Hold on, real quick, guys. And this is really for everyone on this panel. These motherfuckers, she is 17. This woman in 1957, as much as I don't agree with the ideology of the country that she's from, and a lot of her perspective, because it is very, very, very partisan-like, these people are far brighter and far more intelligent and far more learned in the actual history of where they come from, and also the history of the surrounding areas, the world history, for lack of a better term to use. These people are far more intelligent than 17-year-olds of today, and probably 17-year-olds of, my days. And I feel like, honestly, I feel like I'm 37. So the 90s was my time of my adolescence growing up and being educated. I feel like that was the last actual true educational functioning educational system that we had in the U.S. It is, since the turn of the century into the 2000s, it has consistently been, schooling has been defunded heavily. The arts have been defunded heavily. Physical education has been defunded or has seen less and less relevance in students' lives. And there are very few young people. I would even say there are far less than there should be in the number of people in their 20s, and people who are younger, there are barely any who actually know the history of anything that is not on social media. They don't know the history of anything. But we got a new fucking international day of something every day of the fucking week. For what? Motherfuckers don't even know the history of those international days and where they come from and the movements that were behind them. International Women's Day, and I use this as an example only because it's the first thing that came to my mind. Like, there are so many women who are flexing online about International Women's Day, but how many of them can actually tell you about the history of the suffrage movement and the original feminist movement, which has been warped into something completely different now? But the original feminist movement, how many of them can actually tell you of that history? Far less than you think, I guarantee you.
The Negro does not need a primary easily. This journalist quoted Dr. D.F. Malan, who is an ex-Prime Minister of South Africa, as saying, and I quote, "The Negro does not need a home. He can sleep under a tree." Well,
Whoa.
not only is this absolutely fictitious, But he forgot to mention the fact that brick and concrete trees, known to most people as houses, are costing thousands, millions of dollars of the white taxpayers' money annually.
What did you say? I didn't get the point. Said what houses?
Well, you see, this journalist...
Hey, my Nigerian cat is ready to pounce. I love it. Because that's how Nigerians are. He is not, like, if we know it's not right, we going to say, that's not right. We're going to bring a counterpoint. And, I mean, this South African girl, where's her self-awareness? You are sitting amongst Africans, and you are berating and condescendingly talking about Africans in defense of white South Africans. The white South Africans' tax money. Like, what? Well, maybe if you gave these black South Africans the opportunity to work in the same way you do, to learn in the same way you do, to vote in the same way you do, maybe then y'all both will be paying taxes, and y'all both could have a voice in where the trajectory of the country goes from that point. She is literally like self-reporting that she is fully invested in the system of apartheid, which is ridiculous.
Dr.
Yes,
Milan,
I got that point. You say what houses costing the government millions of dollars?
I
What
said
houses?
concrete and brick and cement houses for the Bantu peoples.
But these are the Bantus that are working for you in the factories. How did you get the money? They got the money, they mined the gold, got the gold, and you sold the gold outside. You got the money and you say the money is yours.
Of course
You
it
can't
is.
do that.
Oh, shit. Don't you fuck with us. We know what the fuck we talking about, my friends. We know. He is dragging her. He's dragging her. And look, we'll do it unapologetically. Drag them. When we know that somebody's on some bullshit, I do it online all the time. I do it on Twitter all the time. I mean, I pick and choose what I want to get on, what I want to drag somebody on, but that's how we do it. Remember this. This is 1957, and that ain't changed. That's how we do it. That's how we get down in Nigeria.
The Bantus that are working for you in the factories. How did you get the money? They got the money, they mined the gold, got the gold, and you sold the gold outside. You got the money and you say the money is yours.
Of course
You
it
can't
is.
do that. That's a contradiction,
Look,
please.
we came along.
It's a contradiction.
We bought the machinery. We developed the mines.
From where did you get the machinery from the mines in Johannesburg? Do you own the
No,
mines?
we got
Who
our
worked the
machinery.
mines?
We got our machinery from Great Britain.
Who
From
worked-
the money that was picked, what was got with the diamonds and
How
the
did you get the diamonds out of
alluvial.
the ground?
Easy. Just keep asking questions. Answer the question. How'd you get the diamonds to buy the machinery? Who was digging in them mines? Y'all was, or them Bantus were? He's dragging the hell out of her. Cha-Cha, what the fuck is you talking about, bro? Who is dragging whom? Who is working in the mines? Well, again, and you said might makes right, but that's total nonsense. That is a way to make it feel like it's what is the phrase that America used as that the Americans used as they wiped out the Native Americans. They called it manifest destiny. What you're talking about is manifest destiny. Manifest destiny is a crock of bullshit. To say that because we have the strength, it is our fate, it is our right to take this land. No. Give them guns and then fight for the land. Then at least it's an even playing field. America, and again, I'm not going into specifically America, but that is that is the easiest analogy that I can bring about what you're saying about this might makes right, is that, again, because you have guns and the other people don't, it's not right to eradicate them. It's not right to manipulate them. That's barbaric. It is intelligent barbarism, because you are in no way and have no intention on this being a fair deal for, say, the Native Americans. Just like her here, her entitlement that she is fucking glowing with right now is that we are the ones who are civilized and they are basically subhuman species in servitude to us. And we will allow them the most basic of gutter amenities to live in shacks and be overpopulated in their shack towns. And from that, they should be grateful. Does that make any fucking sense? Let's get back to it.
Labor there,
How did
Boniface.
they get the diamonds out of the ground?
They weren't dug out of the ground. They were alluvial diamonds. No native labor there, my boy.
What do the natives do? You know what, Suzanne, what's one point you must get right down to the crux of the matter is that in this country, the Africans are really the backbone of your economy. And it is one of that cases where you get this question of man's inhumanity to man. And every day you come here to complain about misrepresentation in the American press. In the actual matter of fact, the American press is giving a fairly good view of the whole situation because they have a color problem themselves.
Have you been to South Africa?
I wouldn't even pay a penny to go there.
Ha ha! This nigga is Nigerian for real. He's like, I wouldn't even pay a penny to go there. Cha-Cha, what, dude, you have some very interesting takes that really don't, I mean, they're just not, so you're anti-civilization, you're just pro-domination. You're pro-domination is what this sounds like. You are for the dominant, the ever-powerful dominant civilization to dominate the less advanced civilization. Is that correct? Because that's what it sounds like when I'm reading your chat. Who is civilized is irrelevant. What is important is the power, the might. Look, the Germans thought the same thing. Didn't work out for them. Also, South Africans thought the same thing. Didn't work out for them. The British thought the same things about India. Didn't work out for them. So, a lot of examples of your flawed logic and flawed perspective as I see it. Now, you have the right to feel that way and to think that way, and there is a corner of the socio-political sphere or box where that was absolutely the truth. But those were less civilized times. And I mean, to a certain extent, we're not very much more civilized, but we now have I wouldn't say we have necessarily laws because, again, there's one country that dominates those on the international stage. So we do have a structure which can put throw a monkey wrench into the notion of might is right. And, you know, that is pretty much how I see things. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the South thought the same thing. Hey, if only they gave those slaves guns so they could help them fight against the North. Because they definitely would have helped the Confederate States fight against the North, right? Who would have had the might then if they would have allowed slaves to fight for them, fight for their South, fight for the land they love, right? There's a reason why they didn't give them guns, because they knew exactly what the fuck was going to happen the moment that they did. That their ass was going to be grass and those slaves were going to be the lawnmowers. So, you know, anyways, let's continue, because these two have stolen the show, clearly. The Ethiopian motherfucker over there, He was talking that shit. I ain't African. But you African, motherfucker. What you talking about? You are African. You in our landmass. It don't matter where you think you from. Y'all been there. Y'all were there at the beginning. You African, friend. Anyways. And I really expected Amelia to be going off in this too. But she just, and again, that speaks to the nature of one of the reasons why African countries don't like Nigerians, because we steal the show. He has effectively become the representative of Africa versus injustice. In this specific regard, South Africa's apartheid apartheid government.
How can you talk? How can you talk?
Because I wouldn't even pay a penny to go there.
Well, then, how can you talk? How can you talk?
Because I have the facts. People come in there, get every people, no means of living. How can I go there? I want a house, I want a home, I want position in society.
Well, look, they're getting it.
Damn right.
They're getting exactly what they want.
I'd love to hear from Amelia and Mesfin what if their picture of South Africa is the same as Boniface's is.
It should be the same weight.
Oh no, I didn't want them to gang up. I wanted them to join the dialogue because, like I said, the Ethiopian, he got beef with the Nigerian, and also the Gold Coast person actually has a negative notion about Nigerians as well. So really, the Nigerian dude is kind of solo dunking on South Africa, dunking time and time again. He's getting alley oops. He's going in between his legs. He's doing 360 spins. He's dunking all over her. I think the Gold Coast and Ethiopia kind of want to sit back because, this Nigerian kid here, he sounds like he knows exactly what the hell he's talking about.
Well, coming from Africa myself, naturally I would be a little embittered against the whites in South Africa because from what we hear, they are mistreating the Africans there. But personally, I have no preconceived ideas against the whites because, frankly, I haven't been there, and you can't always trust what you hear from people or what you read from the press. So I have no solid facts about South African problems.
Actually, I myself am against the South Africans because, the white people in the South Africa, because in whose house can one come and take away the property? Because what they are doing now, the white people are mining and taking the property for themselves, and that's what they shouldn't do, because the native people who are living there, they should have what is the property of theirs. Well, actually, before I came from Ethiopia, I was reading about this in the press, and they were pretty hot about it. They were against the white people. The same thing could happen to them, of course.
On this oppression business, if you say the Bantu in South Africa oppressed, how do you account for this fact? That every year, regularly, hundreds of thousands of Bantu and Negroes from other territories adjoining South Africa, such as Portuguese, East Africa, etc., are invading our country illegally in spite of the law.
Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? This sounds like a talking point that has made rinse and repeat for damn near 70 years. Huh. Not a lot has really changed. Not a lot. This is kind of blowing my mind. This is literally, ironically, the same pattern of discourse that you see today, albeit far more eloquent and far more civil to a certain extent, and far more intelligent, but in the one position where there is a clear injustice being done by one of these people's cultures, we are hearing these same talking points that you hear this very day in July 2021 about whose fault it is that this is not working or that is not working. It's the same shit, which leads me to believe in one thing. The person who must fight and point the finger to blame others for the ills that really they have brought on society in many instances, they're on the wrong side of history. Because apartheid is gone. That whole notion of the white South African dominance, at least in that form as apartheid, could not sustain because it simply was not right. So one would wonder if these same talking points of blaming immigrants are the crutch to hold up and justify apartheid, then what is it that is holding up and being a crutch for today in 2021 when there are people who blame immigrants or people who say it's immigrants that are the reason for why things are bad or crime is high or voting is a fraud or this is that. It's the same talking point redressed in bullshit. And this is 100% confirmation and validation of that. Because here we are 70 years in the past with the exact same notion of finger pointing being used to try and justify the minimization of a culture and a race of people. It is the same thing, literally. And that is blowing my mind right now. I'm going to start digging these videos up. I might, what? This shit is freaking crazy.
What, we've gone?
Are they coming for oppression? They know what goes on in South Africa, and they come back year and year again. Those who have worked in South Africa and have been sent back, come back. Are they coming back to seek oppression?
This does not answer what I'm driving at. The Africans have the land. They were
no,
there
they
before
do
you.
not have the land, and
They
they were
mined
not
the
there
gold.
before us. They come back year and year again.
Hold the this shit is crazy. Apartheid disappeared because black South Africans were allowed to vote. I believe part of it is that. Part of that is why apartheid disappeared. And pressure from the international community at that time in the 90s because the shit was fucking obvious what was going on there. You can't hide it. And people, in society was rightfully disgusted by it. So, at a certain point, it was bound to break. At a certain point. Ooh, hold on one second, guys. I got to real quickly do a quick plug swap on my camera so it doesn't go out while I'm here. All right. All right, I'm back. Well, look, formerly Rod Line, if you heard what she said, she was not speaking about legal immigration. She was speaking about illegal immigration. I think I'm just confused in how I'm now seeing what you said, but yeah, I agree with you. I think legal immigration is the preferred way to go. But and again, this is me I'm not giving an excuse for illegal immigration right now. What I'm about to tell you is one of the undeniable facts as to why, or a part of the reason why illegal immigrants are illegal immigrants. And that is because the red tape to actually migrate to America is so unbelievably thick that it literally would take you one person to be able to get through the process, to be able to immigrate legally to this country from anywhere in today's age, in 2021, the information technology age that we live in. It'll take a decade for some people to get to this country legally. It'll take anywhere from 5 to 10 years, which is absolutely unacceptable. That has to change. If people want to immigrate to or want to migrate to America, to the United States, which they should do it legally, it should be a reasonable, it should not be a fucking like portion of their life where they're just spending waiting to make the move. If someone is if someone is in a dire situation in their home country and they cannot get a legal entry into the U.S. because they literally, one, have to have a ton of money, a lot of money, which where countries they're coming from, they ain't got that money. And two, they got to wait in line behind the people who got a lot of money. So, again, when the system becomes inefficient in the way that it actually allows for that migration to take place, people do not have the time to wait like that. So I see where for people who are illegal immigrants, it is more attractive to actually just get their ass over here and try to get asylum where they have to be let in, than to go through a half a decade to a decade of red tape for one person. Not even. My uncle. It took my uncle 6 years. And this was back in the mid-90s. It took him 6 years to get just a fucking student visa to come to the U.S. Why? Why does it take that long? If it's going to take that long, he's better off to just jump on a fucking flight, come into the U.S. and stay. You know, that's where, you know, you have to understand how the systems work and the problems in the bottlenecks of many different institutions in our country that just bog down efficiency. And the answer is not a hard one, but it takes people letting go of that tribal team culture. Because there's only one team. American team in this country. And it's that's the problem. That's part of the problem. The solutions are not very complicated in the sentiment of what you're trying to get done to allow people to come over to this country. The problem is that, one, we've got a lot of people who make a lot of money off of keeping these things the way they are, and two, there's too many people who allow themselves to be manipulated by things like the news into thinking that the simple notion that someone would come to this country and it's in an illegal manner means that they are an enemy. When there's a circumstance to every person, there is a circumstance to every person who comes here illegally, and it may be for good, it may be for bad. But the general sentiment is that it's for good. People are not coming to America to come murder people. They're coming to America to try and make a way for themselves. Because as troubled as, you know, some aspects of America are, it's still 100,000 times the opportunity for an individual coming from a different country, depending on what that country's circumstances are. So why not make it a more efficient and a more streamlined process that allows for people to get here legally in a reasonable amount of time? I mean, 2 years I would consider reasonable, but once anything past 2 years to me is completely inefficient. it shouldn't take a person more than 2 years to immigrate to America. It shouldn't. My opinion. Sasha speaks. Am I gonna play the vid when I feel like it? All right. Let's get back to this. I'm glad you guys are sticking around, man. I really am. I appreciate it. You guys are fucking being awesome. And you know, again, this is not me. I'm not arguing with anyone in particular. I'm simply giving you my perspective. Y'all know what it is. You know, you guys can talk to me about anything. I don't take it personal. I'm not going to insult you, but I will debate you. I will do that. All right, let's keep going. Let me back it up 5 seconds.
Repression, they know what goes on in South Africa, and they come back year and year again. Those who have worked in South Africa and have been sent back, come back. Are they coming back to seek oppression?
Your query, this does not answer what I'm driving at. The Africans have the land. They were there before you.
They do not have the land, and they will
mind
not
the
be
gold.
before us.
All right, wait a minute, Susan. Let me get my point straight.
Yeah, let them finish.
They mine the lands. They get the diamonds. You sell the diamonds outside, and when you get the diamonds, you say they are not to be given their own fair share of the quota. Have you read "Cry the Beloved Country"?
Yes, I have. It's a one-sided view.
One-sided view, and it was written by an European. How could Europeans be having one-sided view about their own king and
radicals
queen?
in every nation.
Radicals? You are radicals in South Africa, then?
Oh, no, we're not.
Oh, he said you're radicals. I like, who the fuck is this guy? I need to know his name. This guy is on point. Garrett Hickmer. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I'm trying. He says, I'm a plumber. The hardest working men I ever met came here for their children. Better men than me by a long shot. No, I mean, dude, look, man, I am all for people, you know, making a living, having the ability to live comfortably and to live and be content in their own life in their own way. And that comes in many different shapes and forms for many different kinds of people. But at the end of the day, if you're going to set a bar to be a country that is built on the premise of everyone created equal, and the premise of a country that is built and that thrives because of immigrants, then, you know, we got to be able to at least be empathetic to those who skirt the rules for noble reasons, even if in not ignoring that they did it in the wrong way, not ignoring that at all. I believe if an illegal immigrant is in this country and wants to find a way to be a citizen, they will have to pay. I feel like there has to be a certain amount. There has to be a financial, I guess, you could call it like a poll tax, kind of like there has to be a financial penalty for them having been here illegally that would have to be paid, and then they would be given a way to go through the channels to find either a permanent residency or citizenship. I think that you know, and it's a case by case thing. Again, it's not I wouldn't consider it a one size fits all situation. I consider it more of a case by case. Like, you know, obviously you don't want people coming in who are associated with criminal elements, but you know, those who come for their kids, like you said, I think that there is a certain level of understanding, because the very first person that came to what would become the United States came because of their concern for the future of their people, their families, their children. It's all the same.
Look, Mesfin was just talking about, and all of you, about the importance of news about South Africa in the Gold Coast, in Nigeria, and in Ethiopia. I'm wondering whether news about racial problems in the United States also takes up a good deal of space in your countries. Does it in the Gold Coast?
Yes, very, because after all, the Negroes come from the Gold Coast, and we feel very badly about what the Americans are doing to our Negroes. I know that one of my ancestors probably came here too, and from what I hear in the Gold Coast, the Americans don't give the Negroes a fair chance of activities here. For instance, they don't give the Negroes the same education as they give the white Americans. And also, for instance, a Negro wouldn't be permitted to ride on the same bus with a white man. As for me, I don't think that color, which is purely a natural thing, can be such a great bar to human understanding. And I think America is a democratic nation, as it calls itself. But this one thing really doesn't show it all very well as a democratic country.
That's the second time. The second time from two different ethnic group or ethnic people from different sides of the world from each other. Africa being more off the edge of the Atlantic Ocean, and Indonesia being part of the Orient. They both said, the girl who was in the last video and this woman here, they both have said the exact same thing. These are things that people who look at America as what is supposed to be the example of a equal society, not in any way living up to that, and actually being quite counter to that in how they handle their citizens. So obviously, yes, 1957, there's been progress. There's no denying that. But these are things that are consistently brought up when you talk about America being the shining city on the hill. Well, why is it? How can you shine when there's blood all in the streets? You know, that's that is a consistent thing throughout the years that is consistently brought up about the United States. So again, my thing is, why aren't we asking ourselves why? Why do people see it like that from other countries? That's something that you have to consider.
You've been in the New York area for about a month now. Does the picture you had of America that you've just described correspond to what you've seen here in the schools and the communities you've been in?
Well, when I came up here, most of the people in New York told me that segregation is only practiced in the South, but in the North, they have now begun to have integration. Well, I didn't think much about it, but one day after school, I went to a restaurant with a friend of mine, and she's an English girl, and we sat there and waited to be served by a waiter. Well, the waiter just came around, looked at us and passed us and went around serving others who came in after us. Well, I knew at once what he was doing, but my friend didn't know it. So she walked up to the waiter and said, well, we've been waiting here so long, won't you serve us? The waiter just looked at her hard and then looked back at me. And then I told the girl that we better leave the restaurant because I understood it. But the girl was shocked, but I wasn't surprised because that was what I was expecting to find. And
how about
American.
you, Miss Finn?
Well, in my country...
No, I mean your experience with segregation here. Have you had any?
Well, when I came to America, I was in Dwightmore High School, and I went for a haircut in the city. I looked up for a barber shop. I went there, and they told me they were busy. I went to a second one. The same thing happened, and to a third one, too.
How about Dwightmore? Are there any Negro students there?
Well, there are quite a lot of them. In fact, about 3-4 Negroes in the school. And they are well treated as the other white people, and I'm happy about it. In fact, one of the vice president of the school is a Negro himself, Linton Marsh.
How about you, Boniface? Have you met segregation at all here?
I've not met it. I think they must be pretty lucky, because I've been looking forward to get the segregation against me, but have not got it yet. It's an irony that the South African will get it, and I wouldn't get it myself.
Well, Susan really has felt some here. It's interesting that you're the only one who has not. Yes?
What are we after now? I think we'll come back to this question of I think it wasn't the United States racial problems. Well, I feel, of course, that the outlook here has continued to be better.
You do?
I do. But on the other hand, this racial segregation, which of course I do, and I'll always make that point clear, is an outcrop of insecurity in economic conditions, and also somehow low-pointed opinions and all that sort of thing. Provides other people with that same pretext by which they could criticize the United States. Asians and Africans can't understand why a country devoted to the greatest ideals of freedom and democratic government should expect to discriminate among their citizens.
We didn't get to ask Sue whether in South Africa her newspapers play up racial news in America, too.
Oh, yes, they played up a great deal. Well, naturally, we get all these stories about the riots at Clinton, Tennessee, and how they had to escort these people to school and bring out the National Guard and so on and so forth.
Mrs. Waller, if I may interpret,
Yes.
I think there are more rats in the Johannesburg area, in the Negro area, than there are in Tennessee. Am I right, Susan?
Oh, well, there are a couple of...
rats, yes.
No, I wouldn't say...
He's saying riots. He's talking about riots here. Because, again, something that sounds very familiar to the time we live in today, they're talking about racism and racial issues being highlighted by the media. Has that changed? No, it has not. For better and for worse, it has not. And also the uprising of people who decide that they've had enough and they're going to protest, and those protests turned into riots. This was a very common thing in South Africa during apartheid. And likewise, it was a very common thing during the civil rights movement in America. A lot of riots, a lot of things burning, a lot of things getting broken, but also protest, which I define as two separate things. Riots and protests are different. A riot can take place during a protest. But a riot, a protest does not take place during a riot. That's where I believe people get it twisted. You don't start with a riot. A protest is what is the nucleus of that of the event. But agitations create the riot. A riot does not just start and then a protest, a protest then coincides with it. That doesn't happen. So for me, I see them as wholly separate things, with one being directly affiliated with the other, in that a riot is only truly birthed during a protest, and not the other way around. Work riots start off as protests. You have employees who are picketing and protesting their working conditions. And then you have the employer who decides they're going to get muscle to fuck these people up so that they stop protesting. And then it turns into a riot. So that's kind of the same thing.
A riot.
And wait a minute. In the Johannesburg area, you have only one telephone to the whole Negro population.
Oh, rubbish.
Yes.
Where do you get your facts from?
Facts from books written on countable times on South Africa.
Well,
We are not the only country in the
absolutely
world.
ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Absolutely true.
I'll get this for you afterwards. There are not, I can
All right, let me
guarantee
finish
you.
my question.
One
Let me
telephone.
finish my statement, please.
No wonder
One
people
telephone.
prejudice
Let me
with
finish
so
my
much
telephone,
ignorance.
Wow. This Nigerian dude is fucking, it's his show. He is the one that gives the most comprehensive answers. He is the one who is actually speaking with foresight. He's the one who is speaking with a much broader perspective, because he is more traveled than her. He was educated outside and abroad. And Man, this motherfucker is only like this is a fucking high schooler, bruh. This is a high schooler. This dude sounds like he could be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company right now.
One telephone in the whole Johannesburg district. Why? They don't want the Africans to have a means of communication by which they could rebel against the people. I'm speaking from facts. John Gunter wrote that.
That's absolutely ridiculous. And
Ridiculous.
I think if you try and...
Oh, you didn't say it was wrong. It is ridiculous,
It's
but not wrong.
It's wrong.
That's
It is wrong.
Ridiculous, but not wrong.
That is no fact.
Barnabas, if you have got your facts from one-sided...
It's not one-sided, Mesfin. It's not
It
one-sided.
should be, because
You know.
what you've got is almost all what you've got.
All right,
is, against each
I
other.
can give you 4 concurrent. John Gunter wrote that. An African newspaper in Nigeria wrote that. A British paper wrote that. A Lebanese paper wrote that. Are all the world prejudiced against
Well, you
South
can't
Africa?
so much criticize the country without actually going there and seeing what is happening, you see.
I don't need to go there. I told you I wouldn't
You
pay a penny
should.
to go there. How
Because
can I go
we
there?
have come to America and we are looking what they are doing in America. We might have got false ideas of America.
In America,
I would
the outlook
appreciate
has
if you-
continued to be better. In South Africa, the outlook has continued to be worse.
As a matter of fact,
And that exactly,
I disagree
Mesfin.
with you.
As a matter
No,
of
that
fact, we are
exactly.
progressing.
Wait a minute, Susan. That exactly, Mesfin, is
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I just keep hearing my dad when he says that.
that
fact, we are
exactly.
progressing.
Wait a minute, Susan. That exactly, Mesfin, is what Susan. I think you better take care about this. When these Africans come to learn that they are really being discriminated, I think they're learning now. And when they rise, you know what has been imposed upon the people by law, or what has been suppressed when you get the people really suppressed. When they rise, they shall throw away that same government. And you are.
Well, let me... Look,
instead
you
of-
had your speak. I'm going to have mine now.
Ah, she's just interrupting his cat. He can't even finish his thoughts. She's ready to pounce because she's in a purely defensive mode because she only knows one way to look at this thing. This guy has the luxury and the benefit of seeing two sides of the coin because he's an African, but he's also learned and been educated he was educated in Britain, but he's looking at it from a purely logical standpoint. He says, where do you get the diamonds from? Who gets the diamonds? Who goes into the mines and gets these resources that y'all use to buy the equipment that you create an industry off of this for? How can you have these people do all of this and then you take what they got from their land that they were at first and then you give them nothing as part of it? They get zero in the deal. But and she says it's not theirs, it's ours. It's like, come on, you hustling backwards.
Which you most probably have misinterpreted already.
No, you misinterpreted.
Just a minute,
it
let
yourself.
me speak.
Not
Is working towards a solution in South Africa, and it so happens that there will be no riots, nothing like that. This apartheid policy, which I will afterwards speak to you about, seeing I think there's only very little time, is working towards getting self-realization and self-rights for the black people within their own areas. And I think if you make
Within their own areas.
for the black people within their own areas. And I think if you make a careful study of apartheid, you will see, and already they've started legislating in South Africa and spending vast sums of money. Within the next 20 years, we're going to have a solution to our problems.
I've spent 15 years learning it, and every day I become more prejudiced against South Africa. I don't need to spend a day more.
But
And
I think
for
you're getting your
instance,
facts from the wrong source.
Not
That's all
from
I
the
can
wrong
say.
source, please. You're getting your facts from the government laid out principles and practices.
Well,
that
I
will
live
prevent
there.
separation with
I
the
live there. I ought to know.
I don't
you
want to
you
live
live
there.
7,000 miles away. How can
That's
you know?
not better. I have a home, I have a house, I
reading
can walk anywhere I
propaganda.
have.
Reading propaganda.
Unfortunately,
All right,
our
no,
time is
Susan,
running
let's
out.
put that down,
I'm wondering if anybody's got a final word to say on the subject of prejudice and where they come from.
Yes.
Mesfin?
Folks, I understand I'm becoming an African, I suppose.
What'd he say?
I understand I'm becoming an African, I suppose.
Yeah. See? Look at this motherfucker.
Prejudice, where they...
Now he feeling that motherland energy. Like now he's becoming an African. You damn right. You always was.
They come from.
Yes.
Mesfin?
Folks, I understand I'm becoming an African, I suppose.
I I think, Susan, I'm sure that government policies sometimes conflict because you and I get on so well together, and I'm sure that this time our governments are in the wrong. So if we get on together, I'm sure in the future they will try to understand each other better.
I think the important thing to consider is whether on the balance, the direction in which a nation is going is the right one. If two different, even contradictory opinions or points of views can be hospitable, can be exist in hospitality in the United States.
You're talking about Amelia's point at the beginning now.
At the beginning, yes.
Yes, when she said that Americans, she was confused because they could be pro and anti at the same time.
Yes. Can have hospitality in the United States. This is progress. It may not be, it is not weakness.
The dynamism of a democracy that gives hospitality to 2 points of view. I'm sorry, that's all the time we've got. We'll be back again next.
Yeah, this archive MC, I'm subbing to this. Holy shit, they got gold mines and stuff in here. Huh. Man. Man, this was cool. This was a cool little Friday night. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a part 2 to this, but I mean, I'm feeling like for this Friday, I think this is a good spot to stop and you know what? I want you guys to be involved in this. So I would say between now and next Friday, I'm going to put a post in the community side. On the community page on my channel, I'm gonna post basically for you guys to, for any recommendations for any content that you would like me to react to for Friday nights. And it may not be every single Friday night, but we'll have something lined up for Friday night, and I'll try and make sure I let y'all know whether or not we're gonna be doing it on that Friday. But just as something that's kind of off the beaten path, because I mean, this is a sports channel. That's the main focus. But I mean, I feel like it's good for us to be able to, share some time together and just look back and talk about just, the world we live in. Because I mean, there's a lot of things, and I think this is cool because it gives us a peek back in time, and it shows us that there's not a lot that really has changed in the decorum and the societal challenges that many different cultures faced back then, and many cultures still deal with today. And that's not to say just black folks or white folks. I'm just talking about as a human species. Like, there's these same complicated matters that are dealt with, that we feel like are our age's issues that we deal with in this age. But you go back just 70 years and you see the same thing. You see almost verbatim the same talking points and the same sentiments from different people and how they view things. So, I think that's very interesting. I think that is very, it's really, in a way, it's a little bit sad, but at the same time, it is also comforting to know that, the same shit talking that everyone did to each other in the most eloquent, educated way possible back then is the same shit talking that you see that we do in 2021 in a much more crass, much more vulgar, much more trollish kind of way, but it's still the same all together. So, man, I mean, this was fun. This was fun. This was cool. Yeah, Cha-Cha. Yeah, appreciate your contrarian position. At least it makes for good discussion. And I mean, again, we may not see things the same way on certain things, but we're able to discuss it. I want you to be here the next time we do one of these shit. You know what I mean? So, Anyways, no, again, I appreciate you guys, man. You guys have been awesome. I'm about to get off of here. It's about to be 1 a.m. over here on the East Coast. But I really hope that, I hope that you guys enjoyed, at least, the energy of just being able to kind of look at these debates. I think that it's pretty cool. But that's going to be it for this one, guys. I'm your observant lineman, Uche Nwaneri. Appreciate y'all very much. We will see y'all on Monday for the next live stream. Make sure you tap that notification bell so you know when it is about to hit. But other than that, you guys have a wonderful night. Have a great weekend, and I'll catch you all on the next one.